song, let me give you a song, let me sing you a song, let me sing you a song. From dusk and dawn to the early morn, till the battle's gone, till the battle's gone. Hitting on the road, I wanna bring
Hello and good morning. We are here at the Vancouver Aquarium with Jess, one of the marine mammal specialists who has kindly agreed to chat with us this morning. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you this morning?
Good, fantastic.
Thank you so much for taking time to chat with us. I know you have a crazy busy day with so much media coverage and with so many animals to take care of.
Yeah, I mean, every day is a little bit of a busy day, but it's always different, so it's kind of nice.
Well, that's good. So, where are we?
We are at our sea otter exhibit. We have 8 sea otters here at the aquarium, all rescued. These guys are amazing animals, and their moms are even more amazing. They are a very high level of maternal care. Mom's going to teach them how to groom, how to eat solid food, but unfortunately, when you get separated at a young age, you don't get to learn those things.
Aww.
So that's why these guys are here. We can do a really good job teaching them to do those things, but we're never going to do as good of a job as a mother otter. So these guys were ultimately deemed non-releasable by a governing body, but they get to come live here and act as ambassadors for their species.
That's pretty cool. So what are these two's names?
So we've got Joey here. So he was a rescue in 2020 from British Columbia. He's a Canadian otter. And then we have Mac here, who was rescued a while ago. He's about 6 years old now, and he was rescued up in Alaska.
Wow. And so what does it mean? How long was it they supposed to spend with their mom, and how young were they when they got rescued?
Yeah, so these guys can spend up to 6 months with their moms, and they're spending 24/7 with mom. Mom is very, very important. Joey's a great example as a pup that came in very, very young, possibly, less than a week young.
Wow. And then how old was Mac when he was rescued?
So I wasn't there for his rescue, so I'm not 100% sure, but he would have been within that really that small time frame. So he would have been just a tiny, tiny little pup, and I've seen pictures of him. He was adorable, so it was great.
All right, what's next?
Alrighty, so we're going to head over to Stellar's Bay. So obviously you guys are here before open, so this is where, lots of stuff happens. Grounds is doing their thing, watering the flowers, making sure it looks nice and pretty for all of our guests. And then we're also running around doing what's important for us, so making sure those animals get fed before anyone comes into the aquarium this morning. All the animals have already gotten 1 or 2 feeds. So we're very, very busy doing all of those things. And no introduction like that. We've got Ashby and Amac. We've also got Bella back here. She's probably hiding. Yep, there she is, coming out to see what's going on. So this is our stellar sea lion habitat, one of them. This is Stellar's Bay. I would say the most exciting part about this habitat is going to be Amac. So he's our male stellar sea lion, currently weighing in at over 900 kilos. That was right on time, buddy. Perfect.
He knew you were talking about him completely.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got Amac in here, and he's our male. He's a big boy, but he's actually quite sweet. This is the time of year where he's not so focused on eating. This is pretty natural for male stellar sea lions. It's called rut. So they gain a bunch of weight in the spring, prepping for mating season, and then that time of year hits, and food's not really that important. We're all focused on the ladies.
Yeah,
so
we've all been there.
Yeah, exactly.
So focused on the ladies. What does that mean? Like, what is he doing today?
You know what? He's kind of seems like he's very calmly swimming. He's pretty happy. Hi, Bella. How's it going?
Bella, you mentioned Bella was one of the ones that was rescued quite young.
Yeah, so she was rescued as a really, really young pup. So unfortunately, because of that maternal separation at such a young age, she was deemed non-releasable. But she is going to be, you were kind of asking me who a favorite was. She's pretty high up there. She's very spunky, has lots and lots of personality. Really enjoys, the time that she gets to spend with her trainers. Very intelligent. She's so smart. She learns things very quickly, and very high energy.
And is this common for a sea lion, for a stellar sea lion?
Yeah, like people, stellar sea lions or animals in general, they have different abilities, different learning speeds, all of that kind of fun stuff. So it's really interesting. You could train the same behavior across 5 sea lions, and it'll take you different amounts of time. You'll have to take different steps. Not everything, one learning style doesn't fit every sea lion the same way it doesn't fit every person.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And so in Stellar's Bay, there's 3 sea lions?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of habitats. We've got Stellar's Bay. We're going to go over to another one of our habitats that has Stellar sea lions, and then we have a behind-the-scenes habitat. So Amek, this is his home. This is where he lives. But our females actually get switched around a lot. So they get changed. They can get a change in scenery, a change in social groupings, and even switching between in front of guests and not in front of guests.
Very cool. And you said too, there's 2 different places that the females can go to be away from Amek?
So this habitat is definitely designed with the females in mind. Amek obviously being, you know, in the season where he's just thinking about the ladies. The ladies might not want to think about him. So they have 2 options. They can actually fit through those bollards over there, and then they can also fit through that gap in the door there. And there's a pool and a hallway that connects everything. So if they're kind of, you know, done with him for the day, don't want to hang out, they have an option to kind of leave. So which is really, really awesome for them. And it actually keeps a really positive relationship between the males and the females.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Yeah, we'll come over here.
So this is sometimes penguins, but currently construction?
Currently construction, yeah.
Right.
So that's lots of changes. Everything's always changing. One of the reasons why I love my job is because every time I come in, I mean, I can kind of know what to expect, but you never really know that anything can happen. Working with animals can be unpredictable.
That's fair. Do you mind actually defining your official title? I definitely defined it wrong.
Yeah, so I'm the assistant curator of marine mammals. Hello. So that basically loosely translated as assistant manager. So I manage people and I manage animals. So it's one of the best parts of my job is being able to support a team, to be able to support the animals, which is really great.
Do you prefer the managing the people or the animals?
Definitely, I love managing animals, but I have a really awesome team that are all waiting here to be able to feed. So I really enjoy working with them. We've got a fantastic team here. So this is one of our other stellar habitats with our superstar Natoa in here. He'll be a year old next month, which is very exciting. He just broke 100 kilograms, which is insane because he was less than 20 kilograms when he was born.
Wow.
So you can't help but have a little attachment when you get to see something so tiny and cute grow up.
Aww.
We have,
Who is
so
that?
Roga's mom, Yasha, we call her a Muppet because I think she looks like a Muppet when she's vocalizing.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we've got Sika, who's actually one of our oldest stellar sea lion residents. She's 25 years old, which is quite old, so we call her grandma, but she's very cute. That's a very old for stellar sea lions, but she has amazing health, and obviously being in a facility, having access to healthcare, food, no predators, you know, we expect that kind of longer life expectancy.
That's lovely. And is it true that she's the mom to one of the pups in here?
Not Sika, but Rogue is the younger
Rogue
one
is.
there. So that's mom right there.
Okay.
If you guys want to head over, we're going to go,
let's go.
you know, feed some animals.
Oh, very exciting.
Yeah. So this is the team for the day. We are going to be heading in to feed our harbor seal and senior Cinco. I'm going to head in first and you guys can follow me behind me.
All right. Thank you. Hello, all. I'm Emma. Thanks for letting us intrude today. So we'll go right behind you.
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right.
Okay, water. So just be careful of the gap here.
Being careful of the gap.
Let's go, Cinco. Good job. Okay, I'm gonna ask him out, so just be careful of the dock moving. Out! Good job. Hi, handsome man. Alrighty.
Yeah, sorry.
So this is Senior Cinco. As his name implies, he was rescued on Cinco de Mayo, and actually on Spanish Banks. So he was really, really skinny, didn't look good, and someone, a member of the public, called the Marine Mammal Rescue Center, which is a great thing to do when you see an animal in distress or you think might not be okay. And our Marine Mammal Rescue team went out and looked and, you know, decided he wasn't actually looking that good. So he was picked up, brought to our rescue center, and on his diagnostics and, you know, checking him out, they actually x-rayed him and found out that he had sustained a gunshot wound to the face. So, and that was with birdshot, so it's like those little tiny pellets. So they actually rendered him completely blind. So he was deemed non-releasable. He couldn't go back to the ocean because blind animals can't really go back to the ocean. They're not going to be able to hunt or fend for themselves. So Senior Cinco comes here to live with us. And it's been really amazing working with him. Working with a blind animal can be challenging, but he makes it easy. And I mean, look at that face. How can you not love it? So a couple of really cool things about Cinco that we do because he is blind. A lot of our animals respond to hand signals, things that he can't respond to. So we use our voices and we use this target pole here. So it's got a rattle in it. Good. He knows to follow that noise, which makes it really easy. And then we've got some touch commands and some verbal commands. And the most important thing that we focus on with all of our animals, but especially our blind animals, is going to be husbandry, which is just a fancy word for animal care. And that can be as simple as asking Cinco to show me his flipper. Flipper. Good job. To even things more complicated like voluntary blood samples or vaccines. So those are two things that Cinco are trained for. So I can ask him down. Good, wait. And I can come back here to the hind end. Look at his flipper. And then we actually take the blood sample from in between his toes here on the flipper. So he just sits nice and calmly, and we're able to do that. Good boy.
And how do you work up to that in the training? Like, that seems a pretty complicated maneuver.
Yeah, so we do all of our training here through positive reinforcement. So I asked Cinco to lay down. He did a really good job. I gave him fish, and that communicates to him that he did a really good job. So through positive reinforcement training, we can take approximations. So that can be something as simply we trained him a down first. And that might just look to him targeting on the target pole and following it. Good. And then reinforcing him simple behavior and then building up, we lie down, we stay still. We usually have to build up duration because sometimes taking a blood sample can take a long time because these guys can actually pull the blood away from their flippers. So the flow of the blood might actually be quite slow. And then even just building up, having someone touch him on his flipper and then, touching him with something that's not a hand. And then eventually you build it up to a point where the whole behavior is so positive because each step of the behavior is reinforced with that fish. And then in the end it goes, hey, that wasn't that bad. And at the end of it, I got my whole bucket and it was amazing. And it was really, really easy. I just had to lay there. And then it becomes kind of a positive experience.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Yeah, so that's a big part of what we do with Cinco here. But I'm going to put him in the water now.
His whiskers keep moving.
Yeah.
So is that like similar to a cat? Would it be something involved or?
So these guys have really sensitive whiskers. So I can kind of demonstrate that to you. I can just touch his whisker here and he knows to move towards it. So often if you look at our animals that have sight, they can lay those whiskers down really, really close to their face. And that's kind of where they stay. And then as you're feeding them fish, they move forward. But his whiskers, being a blind animal, tend to be forward a lot. So it kind of senses the environment around him. You can see when I go like this, he knows there's fish there. Just touching the tips of those whiskers that are really, really sensitive. He also uses them to move around his environment. So you can see later if you watch, he'll be swimming around and his whisker will just brush the side of the habitat and he knows to turn. It's very amazing. These animals are extremely resilient. Being blind, he has been able to adapt and thrive kind of after that being happening.
Wow. And are you ripping the fish apart for him?
Yeah, I'm just ripping it apart so we have more.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Good job, Cinco.
Wow, it's wild. It's really neat to see how much they adapt.
Yeah.
And how different all of them are. Like, do you get to know their personalities quite a lot?
100%. These animals have insanely different personalities. Cinco is pretty great. He's very easygoing, which is insane because he was rescued as an adult, so he lived his entire life out in the ocean.
Oh, wow.
He was a wild animal for a really, really long time. But gaining his trust, as soon as he realized where that food was coming from, he was like, yep, I'm on board. Let's get with the program. Like, let's go. He's been really, really great, and he's been an incredibly trusting animal. With, not having his vision, he has to trust us a lot for a lot of things. And so he's been really, really awesome with that. And it's been a privilege to work with him. Good job, Cinco.
So he's one of 4 animals that's in this tank?
5. So we've got 4 harbor seals in this habitat. We've got Hermes and Da Vinci, our longest standing resident harbor seals at over 25 years. And then we've got Jessica Seal, who has a similar rescue story to Cinco. She was also sustained a gunshot wound to the face, rendering her vision impaired. And then we've got Donnelly down on the end there. She was hit by a boat that caused her to be completely blind.
And what's the importance of having animals in here that are rescues instead of like just captives?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said with rescued animals. A lot of the time, these animals are being rescued because of human interaction, right? And so that's kind of our responsibility, or at least how I see it. If we, as a group of people, don't always take care of our oceans, then it would be nice so that we can also have a hand in protecting them. And then having these animals here as ambassadors is really amazing. There's a lot of people, who don't live by a coast and don't get to see these animals up close. And why would you feel like you need to protect something that you don't have a connection with? So this allows people to make a connection. It also allows us to tell their stories, and even promote things like, don't use plastic bags, something as simple as that.
And on that, what are things people can do to help these animals to not be causing that harm?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things coming into summer is making sure, if you are appreciating these animals out in the ocean, you're doing it from a safe distance that allows the animals to be nice and comfortable. Seeing animals out in the ocean is one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
So I don't blame anyone who wants to do that, but as long as we're doing it responsibly is great. And if you see an animal that looks like it might need some help, you can always call us at MMR.
What is a safe distance from an animal?
50 meters to 100 meters. You got to go. Football field is a good way to do it.
Football field away. Get those binoculars going.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to finish Cinco up here if we want to head back down the dock. Yep. Final. Oh, as my glasses fall off.
Coming up to a step. Thanks.
Amazing. I'm going to hand this to you. Thanks so much.
Awesome.
And head back up here.
Well, thank you. That was so cool to see. I've not been able to be in an enclosure like that.
Yeah.
Wow. So there's lots of things people can do to help these animals, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
You wanna tell us a little bit more about that?
I mean, if we can infect our environment, all those kind of things, very, very simple things. We can do, use our reusable coffee mugs. That's a very simple one to use. We don't need to use those one-use plastics. Bringing your own utensils, bringing your own containers is a really great way. Those single-use plastics, it's a huge impact on the environment, and any way to cut that down is really great. You can bike to work, you can carpool to work, all those kind of things. The weather's beautiful out, so it's a great way to get out and do that. Lots of little things. I mean, no one's perfect. No one can do everything. But every little action you take, if we're all taking little actions, it can build up into a big thing to kind of help out the environment that these guys live in.
I agree completely. You mentioned the MMR. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that is and how that you work with them?
Yeah, so marine mammal rescue is a really big part of what we do here at the Vancouver Aquarium. There is a dedicated team there that are really, really amazing at responding to distressed marine mammals. I have the privilege of working with them every single year, which could be anything from not just supporting them in what they do, or, being able to cover shifts, especially if we have a sea otter in, that's 24/7 care. And so we need as all hands on deck for that kind of stuff. So we can support them in that. And then also we work really closely together with those animals that are deemed non-releasable and that can't go back out to the ocean, providing them a home here, and providing that health care there and continuing the same level of high level care that they get at MMR here at the Vancouver Aquarium.
That's awesome. What point does an animal usually transfer if they've been deemed non-releasable? At what point do they transfer from the MMR to the aquarium? Usually? Yeah, so I mean, it can vary with species, and it can vary with the situation and the health of the animals. What we really like to do is the minute that they're deemed non-releasable, just like kids, young animals are sponges. They absorb that information, they really take to training, and we try to get that as early on as board. So as soon as they're deemed non-releasable, even if transport here isn't, it might take a couple weeks or a couple months, we will actually send, part of our team there to start the training. We'll also work with the people who work there, and they all have kind of like a basic understanding of training, and they've been really, really integral to starting that training there so that it can translate here as well. That's perfect. It sounds like such a great working relationship and such a great process for the animals, whether they're being released or deemed non-releasable. Yeah, I mean, we are all very, very close between the two of us, yeah. That's great. Is there anything else you want to tell us about the aquarium while we're here?
Yeah, I hope you guys come down and see for yourself how amazing these animals are in person and how much personality they have, and I'm sure you'll learn something too.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Jess. It has been so cool to see around, and yeah, just such a treat to get to go in and be so close with the animals. So thank you for showing us around and teaching us stuff today.
Absolutely, anytime.
Yeah. We are here at the Vancouver Aquarium Marine Mammal Rescue Center, and Lindsay Ackhurst has kindly agreed to sit down with us today and tell us all about the MMR. Welcome, Lindsay.
Welcome back, Emma.
Thank you. How are you today?
Very good, thanks. It's a little nicer because it's not as hot today.
Yeah. I was a little worried for rain, but I'm happy it's holding.
I feel like it's better lighting. But yeah, no, it's good.
It's perfect
great.
lighting.
It's perfect lighting.
Not gonna lie, you look great.
Great, thank you. You yourself?
So tell me, what is your position here?
So I am the manager of the Vancouver Aquarium Marine Mammal Rescue Center. I've been with the center for just pretty much 17 years.
Wow.
So a little while. And I'm also a registered veterinary technologist, so I'm an animal nurse by trade. I don't get to do as much of that fun stuff anymore with the management side of things, but still here, obviously, when the animals are coming in and all aspects is what I'm involved with.
So where are we right now?
So we are at the Vancouver Aquarium's Marine Mammal Rescue Center. As you can see, it's not on site at the Vancouver Aquarium. We are a separate location for a variety of different reasons. The biggest thing is obviously space. There's not a lot of space over in Stanley Park for us to be able to rehabilitate the animals there. But our center here is also a quarantine center. So we're bringing animals that are ill, injured, sick in some sort of way. So we wouldn't want to, get the animals at the aquarium, any of those diseases or anything too.
That makes sense. Is that why we had to do aquarium and then come to the Vancouver Aquarium Marine Mammal Rescue Center?
That is correct. Yeah, we can't go from here to the aquarium for those reasons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what are these pools around us specifically?
These two pools specifically behind us are our pre-release pools. The majority of our patients that come in are harbor seals, harbor seal pups at that. So through that process, this is kind of like their final stage for them. As you can see, there's nobody in there right now. It's the beginning of our pupping season in British Columbia, or in the local area. So our patients that will be coming in will be really small, and they will not be going in these pools, but they'll be going into our intensive care unit.
Let's go look at those pools.
Let's go have a look.
So then, if now there's not very many animals, what is the season that you do see the most amount of animals coming through?
It's starting any day. In fact, we're like really pushing for. Every time the phone rings, we kind of jump and go, oh, it's happening.
That's exciting.
So we have been getting a few calls. We've been monitoring a few animals, but no animals themselves have actually needed to be brought into the center. But these tubs here house each individual harbor seal when it comes in. These guys are like between 5 and 10 kilos in size, so very small.
That's the smaller tanks.
Yeah, these small tubs here. So they go into these tubs here. They're here for, depending on their condition when they first come in, they'll often be in there for, a few weeks, and sometimes even months too, for some of the little guys when they come in.
Okay. So if the season's starting now for having a lot of animals come through, how long does the season run until?
That just depends. Our busiest time is kind of May through October, November-ish. So they start being born this time of year. For the next few months, we'll start receiving the most amount of animals throughout the year. And then once that season stops, probably September-ish, they stay here the rest of the rehabilitation process, and then we release them back out kind of throughout the winter months.
Oh, okay. So the animals that are going to be released stay with you and then released through the fall and winter months?
Yes, yeah. It just depends on the species. When I kind of go animals, I kind of lean towards harbor seals because that's our primary patient. We do see everything like sea otters and sea lions and sea turtles, small cetaceans that come in, so whale, porpoise, dolphins. Porpoises probably being the bigger one. I'm going to knock on wood. Very superstitious here. I don't want to say anything out loud, but we see a variety of marine mammals, obviously, that come through our doors, but also animals that we treat out in the wild, too.
Okay. And how many animals do you see in one season, usually?
We respond to, and that can be anything from responding, going out and monitoring, to actually collecting, or going out in the field, treating, and then returning. Upwards of 300 animals.
Wow.
Animals that actually come on site, we're looking at about 100, 150, just depends on the year. We see trends. Well, I actually shouldn't say trends. We see different years bring different things. Environmental things, La Nina, El Niños, those kind of play a bit of a factor in things like the warming or cold.
Trends.
Yeah. Global trends. There you go.
I got it.
There you go. Said it fast. So it just depends on the year too, and we just can't predict it. We kind of look at some of our other, the other facilities running in California and seeing, their harbor seal popping season is much earlier than ours. We're kind of going, okay, so what did they get this year?
And what did they get this year?
I think their numbers were on average of what they usually get. Their harbor seals are a little bit lower in numbers, but they're, I think they got a lot more elephant seals in this year.
Oh.
And we've been seeing a lot more elephant seals on our coast this past year too.
Interesting.
And many healthy, many just molting and just doing what they're supposed to be doing. Like they go on the beach, they molt for an extended period of time. So we're just we always kind of compare, but there's just no knowing when we're going to get anything and how long they're going to be here for.
Wow. So what are some of the more notable rescues you've been involved with in the last couple of years?
Oh, wow.
I know there's a lot.
Top 5 or top 10?
Let's go top 5.
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard. It's like, I'm like a mother who's like, you can't pick your favorite. But there's always there's some animals that really jump out. Obviously Joey.
We met Joey this morning.
Yes, he's amazing. And he was kind of an animal that came in beginning of the pandemic. One of those things where you're just like, okay, we were open. We just opened again after being closed. There was so much uncertainty in the world and everywhere else. But here Joey comes in, this tiny, fluffy little sea otter who was less than 2 kilos, I think, more fluff than body. And, we were able to actually not only push him through the rehabilitation process, we were also able to share that with the world. He had a live stream. I get goosebumps just thinking about him, which is so funny because, I just saw him literally 2 days ago. We were able to live stream him and some of his rehabilitation, and we did live feeds of him. And he went into homes throughout, not even just Canada, throughout the world, and has this massive following here forward of people who Joey has just literally saved their lives in such a time when some things were at such peril sort of thing. So he would definitely be one of them on site. That's an animal that requires 24-hour care and it's a lot of work. But at that time too, with the pandemic, we didn't have as many staff, we had volunteers.
That's right.
So just the not only the animal aspect of it, but the human aspect of it and how our team rose to the occasion, and we all it's such a great experience all around having him here. So that's one. I'm not going to say if he's number 1 or 5, but there's been some cetaceans that have been pretty big. So some porpoises that we've rescued, and then we released one in 2013, and that was pretty amazing. We were able to track him for a little while, see where he went, and he did some great work.
Where did he go?
So he was released just outside of Victoria, and we were able to track him for, I think it was 71, about 2 months. Thinking if we got a week tracker off him, we were going to be happy with that. We ended up getting almost 2 or just over 2 months. He was doing normal diving behavior, very consistent with foraging, right off the bat. He went kind of stuck around that area and then just went up the inside Vancouver Island. So he was pretty cool.
Just for my own understanding of having no skill in this. So he was doing very normal behavior. He was immediately able to feed himself,
totally.
Going back to the wild, behaving as he should.
Exactly, and that's the first cetacean we've ever released from, rescued, had on site, and released too. So it was such a really, such a great experience to be a part of, and to actually be the one to kind of let him go in the water. It was just very surreal.
Yeah, I think there's photos of you on the wall.
Yeah, there
holding
is.
It.
Yeah, yeah.
And why does the tracker fall off after 2 months?
It either doesn't fall off or it just stops transmitting. It just depends on the battery life. A few different things. The way it's positioned, it's on its dorsal fin, so just at the behind there. So it's very hydrodynamic. It doesn't impede him at all. So probably in that case it would have been battery life. And then eventually the body may have just kind of rejected it and discarded it, sort of thing.
Send away the humans.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, we got some great data off that and worked with some colleagues down in Washington, and it was a really great overall story. But yeah, I mean, I could go on for days. There's tons of seals that have great stories. There's our disentanglement program.
Let's talk about that. Tell me about the
It's amazing. It's probably like one of the highlights of what we do. I mean, there's so many highlights, but for me personally, being able to go out into the field and so disentanglement, pinnipeds, sea lions specifically. So these are sea lions.
Pinniped is
it a seal or a sea lion,
Okay.
or walrus too? They're in that category. So for us to be able to go out in the field, and we're dealing with animals that are impacted by garbage or some sort of ocean plastic pollution sort of thing. So we're seeing plastic packing bands, we're seeing fishing gear, we're seeing rubber bands from crab traps, or one of the things, those frisbees that are round and they have a round hole in the middle.
Oh,
I can't remember what they're called, but
yeah,
we've seen,
frisbees with a hole.
Yeah, exactly. There is an actual term for it. It's probably copyright, so I can't say it. But we're able to, go out in the fields, anesthetize those animals safely, take off that garbage, and then reverse those sedations and set them free, sort of thing. I mean, it's way more than how I just described it. There's a lot.
You made it sound very simple.
I know. It's just we just go out in a boat,
Easy peasy.
Yeah, totally. Our veterinarian, Marty, or Dr. Helena, he's trained over many, many years to be able to dart these animals. And the sedation combination that we use was actually perfected, I guess you could say, at the Vancouver Aquarium when we were dealing with an animal that had some health issues and needed to be sedated often. He was the cocktail that Marty had kind of come up with, along with some of his colleagues, were able to monitor that animal in a controlled setting. While the animal was actually obviously sedated, they kind of tweaked that cocktail. So when, say, an animal jumps in the water, they're sedated, they can still breathe, like naturally, but they're sedated enough that we can actually deal with them too. So it's like this fine line between fully sleeping and fully anesthetized to awake enough to be able to automatically breathe, which is pretty amazing when you have an animal in the ocean.
Yeah, that's remarkable. So what would be the dangers? What would happen if they're fully unconscious?
They obviously wouldn't breathe. And so there is still that risk. You are dealing between that fine line between sleeping and not, a plane sort of thing. So, so for us to be able to go out and deal with those animals, and some of them, they're large, they're 300, 400, 500 kilos in size. So it can be quite dangerous. So you want to make sure they're sedated enough when you're getting close.
Definitely.
And if they're in the water too, obviously we work very closely with Fisheries and Oceans Canada and their vessels and their crews to be able to do that safely. And that's a pretty cool adventurous day when we get to go out and do that stuff. And pretty great to know that we've helped an animal that's been impacted by humans mostly. So there is that connection too, because it's like they're like this because of us. So it's our job to go out there and help them.
Yeah. Do you mind if I fix your mic?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I wanted to talk more about that actually, because I know there's a lot of people that might argue, if you don't mind me playing devil's advocate, argue that wild animals should stay wild.
Yep.
So why is it important to have a center like Vancouver Aquarium's Marine Mammal Rescue Center that negates that? Or
no, it definitely, I mean, people always say, harbor seals, like there's tons of them, why are you rehabilitating them? Or mom will come back. And it's just like we don't rehabilitate every animal that gets called into our center. If we did, we'd have 1,000 plus animals here. And going back to say harbor seals per se, like the naysayers, a population that's thriving, that's doing well, why would you contribute to it? And it's like the majority of our patients that come in, there's that human impact. So for us to not do anything, like it's our fault for the most part, our being the human race, that these animals are in this position. These are sometimes pups that have been separated from their moms because of humans or because busy beaches. Mom gives birth on the beach, goes out to forage, people come in, she's not going to come back. So there are a lot of things, or separated through ocean, noise pollution. They may be separated for a variety of different reasons for that. There are a lot of reasons, or these animals are being caught in human discarded waste, or they're ingesting that stuff too, so they've got bellies full of plastic or something. So the majority of our cases are human caused. We've got animals over at the aquarium right now, boat strikes. These are animals that came through our program and were not able to be released. Donnelly, I don't know if you met her. She's a case in point. Struck by boat in 2021, completely lost her vision. Brought her in. She was pregnant. Another goosebump. So this is okay. This is 3. There we go. This is another case because Donnelly obviously beat all the odds. Struck by boat, major head wound or head trauma, I should say. We were able to bring her in, stabilize her, do a couple procedures to get her back going. And once we were able to stabilize her, we noticed, I went out one day and I noticed her stomach was like going like this. And I'm like, oh, I shouldn't say stomach. Her abdomen area was kind of moving a bit. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. And I'm like, Emily, ran back out. I'm like, can you come see if you're seeing what I'm seeing? And we ended up able to x-ray her, and we saw this little fetus in her, in her. So we're like, oh, okay. So now you're not only saving the life of one who's been struck by a boat, you're saving the life of 2. So at that point, it becomes even more.
Yeah. What was that like to look at that x-ray and see?
Amazing. It was so amazing. And then it just got better and better as it went along, because she went through the pregnancy process, and then she gave birth midday, and we were all able to be a part of that and witness that. And then Dory, that was her daughter, was born in July. And to go through that process, I mean, we have harbor seal pups that come here every year. We get 100, we see 150 or more. But to have this one born on site and just to go through all of like the stages, like we know, okay, between 4 and 6 weeks, they're going to start weaning, like all these things we know, but to actually see those things come and watching their interactions and stuff, it was so amazing. I mean, not only for us, but obviously for our volunteers too, to be able to witness that and be a part of that. And then, and just to watch, we weaned her off her, and we were actually able to release Dory in October of that year, which was also amazing too. It was pretty close to the time that Donnelly went over to the aquarium, and we were able to track Dory for a little while. And her tracker stayed on for an extended period of time, and we were able to follow her. I mean, not follow her, you could see her on a map sort of thing. And she ended up landing at a spot a few months later off one of the Gulf Islands.
Oh, beautiful.
Beautiful area, lots of harbor seals in that area, great food source, and that's where she stayed and probably is there today.
What a great place to live.
Oh, I know, right? Who wouldn't love to live on the Gulf Islands? So another great story for us. And again, it's the human impact side of it too. Like, we're not just saving animals for the sake of going out and saving animals sort of thing. There is also the, you get somebody calling in. We have that public kind of awareness and that public service as well. Somebody sees an animal that they feel is in need of assistance or care. They want to call somebody and they want to tell somebody about it and they want something done.
Yeah, that's true.
So a lot of times, even if we go out and monitor and you've had that connection with the person and you teach them, oh, hey, that's normal for moms not to spend all the time with their pups, and give them some public education, they know somebody cares too. So even if that pup maybe wasn't rescued, or if it's in a spot where you're like, okay, let's see what happens, and then the next day it's gone. Did mom come and get it? We don't know. We know that we've done our due diligence. And we've done some public education too. And somebody knows that somebody cares. Because we do get people, if somebody doesn't do something, I mean, these animals look harmless. They make these noises that they're just like, oh, and people pick them up and they take them and they put them in their bathtubs and things. Because they think if nobody's going to do something, I'm going to do something. And you're like, okay, yeah, well. Not the right thing to do, and always good intentioned for the most part, but it happens every year.
Wow.
I know you're surprised.
I'm sorry.
You're like, not something I would do.
No. I don't know. I guess I always just come back to the fact, they are wild animals.
Yes.
And just I would never think I would know better than, even if it's a baby seal, I'm like, the baby seal probably knows better than me.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. Like might need, if it looks like it needs help, I'm definitely not it.
Yeah.
I'm not helpful.
Yeah.
I try to be, but
I know, right?
yeah. And I also just have a lot of memories of them trying to bite my ankles when we were
It's true.
shooting here.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm like,
There is
they're
that.
wild.
I think you've nailed it. Like, they're wild animals. But it's also, again, us going back to, education and, people just, you've seen those faces. Like, you've seen those eyes, and they
cute.
kind of start moving towards you. They look helpless.
And they look like little puppies.
Exactly.
Yeah, they look like someone you want
Yeah.
to help. I do get that part of it completely.
Yeah, so you have to have, you kind of go, okay, and then you use it as an educational time to be able to. But yeah, I mean, it's happening less and less, but we're still seeing that. So for us, obviously the rehabilitation of animals and the veterinary medicine is a part of it, but also public outreach. Huge for us to be doing, and especially in our slower months, to go out to the public saying, hey, you see this? This is what you do. This is who you call. This is how you can help. And that's been great for us over the last couple of years now that COVID is done.
Yeah.
I'm using air quotes here. Yeah.
And so then what do you find is that most important part for people to know? What should people know when they meet a seal in the wild?
Yeah, that it's wild. That to stay back most of the time, even if it's approaching you, that doesn't mean that it wants to be with you. When pups are really small, anything moving, they might move towards to think, oh, I nurse off that. But yeah, to keep back, if you have a dog off leash, put it on leash and keep it back. And to call us or Fisheries and Oceans Canada, like DFO. There's an incident reporting hotline that we encourage people to call if there is some sort of incident or they see some sort of disturbance. Obviously, the feds need to know about it, and the people that can do something about those things. We're marine mammal rescue, so we obviously rescue animals and we respond to them, but we work very closely with DFO to be able to do a lot of those things too. So,
And DFO is Department of Fisheries and Oceans?
Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada, yeah. They have an incident reporting hotline that any violations, disturbances, observations get called into.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good for people to know.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And if we do see an animal in the wild, how far away should we be?
Keep a distance. I mean, if they see you, you're too close. Like if they're responding to you, then you're too close to the animal.
That's a really good rule of thumb.
Yeah, you kind of go. If they start going like this, you're like, oh. I mean, it's gonna happen. You're in a kayak. You're in deep cove, like local waters, and one's gonna pop up and gonna look at you. They're naturally quite curious at times. Sometimes they'll freak out too, and they'll splash you, and you're like, okay, great. If they're approaching you, obviously, back away. All those things too. They are curious by nature. But they also have massive teeth, so their curiosity might get you in trouble too. We don't want anybody harmed, including the animals.
Good to know. Good to
Yeah.
know. So then Vancouver's on the coast, obviously on the west coast. What would it be like in an area like this if there was no Marine Mammal Rescue Center?
We service all of British Columbia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so any animals that are in need of responding to, specifically obviously harbor seals, that is our go-to, and we have volunteers, and we use other like Fisheries and Oceans Canada, other rehabilitation centers that we work very closely with to be able to assist with potential responding in those smaller communities. Vancouver Island, a lot of our patients come from Vancouver Island and the Gulf Islands. We work closely with Island Wildlife Natural Care Center, which is a rehabilitation center on Salt Spring. And they'll do some stabilization and triage of some harbor seals for us, and then ship them over to us for long-term care. And then, and other small organizations. And we spent the last winter going to a lot of these communities, doing some training, giving supplies, making sure people are trained and feel comfortable, handling these harbor seals.
That's awesome. And so it sounds like you really have a network across the West Coast.
We're definitely getting there. Our network within the Vancouver Aquarium is expanding, but the BC Marine Mammal Response Network through Fisheries and Oceans Canada is also expanding as well, and they're doing lots of training. So it's really great to be able to work with, obviously, a federal agency, and for us to do a lot of things that we do get funding through DFO.
Awesome.
Fisheries and Oceans Canada, to be able to do a lot of that stuff too. So we're fortunate to have that relationship.
Yeah, very cool. And so then if there wasn't this network, if you guys didn't exist, what would happen to the wildlife on the West Coast?
Well, I think we'd be seeing a lot of seals in bathtubs. And that's the thing, we're always like, well, if we don't do it, somebody else will. So you might as well get the people who are trained, professionals, veterinary staff, and volunteers to do that. Because if we don't, somebody will. There are rehabilitation centers that, of course, could, but it's hard to be able to rehabilitate marine mammals with, say, terrestrial and avian species. So you need to keep that a bit separate. Just
How come?
disease, mainly, would be a big thing for that. But yeah, and birds. We don't do birds. Love birds, love them, but we don't do marine species of birds. There's rehabilitation centers throughout British Columbia.
Too many feathers?
No, people. It's funny because people are like, okay, so there's a crow, and I'm like, that's great. I love crows, but you're gonna have to call our colleagues at Wildlife Rescue Association in Burnaby.
There's a crow on the
There's
highway.
a crow, and you're like, okay, we can get this. We can help you get the right number, but you got to call these people.
You heard of Google?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, just for licensing purposes too. It's different licensing in different federal and provincial agencies that deal with different, like terrestrial or avian species too. So
That makes sense.
yeah.
And so then going back to the Vancouver Aquarium, we met a lot of different animals this morning. We met Pim and
Skeena.
Skeena.
Yes.
Both blind. Both
Yes.
recently came.
Yes.
Tell me about them.
Those are two graduates of our program as well. They came through last year. I always say Skim and Pina because
Yeah, I almost
I
went
know.
there.
They're when they were here, they were Jolly Rancher and I'll think of the other name too. Now I've totally
That part of
Jolly
this.
and Willy Wonka. There we go.
Ah,
Jolly
there
and
we go.
Willy were their names when they were
Jolly
here.
and
Mike's laughing. Our theme last year was sweet treats. So Jolly Rancher, Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka makes great treats.
Hi.
But yeah, Willy is Skeena because Willy had one eye and Skeena has a single eye. There we go. See what I did there? I think I got it right.
I think so.
Anyway, amazing creatures. Both came through our program. We actually didn't realize that Jolly was blind until about 3-4 days into her rehabilitation. She was in that bad of shape when she came in.
Oh.
Yeah, she was in intensive care for the first 3 days, and when she opened her eyes, we're like, oh.
What happened? Like, why was she?
We're not sure. Maybe potentially born, get congenital like blindness. Yeah, no, definitely interesting case. Wonderful seal to work with, and very great throughout the rehabilitation process. But then, oh no, that was Jolly. Yeah. Then Willy definitely had some ocular changes, so eye issues, and we noticed some major things. And for the first few days, like stabilizing and getting her comfortable was obviously first and foremost for us. We weren't able to save one of the eyes, that's why we did remove it. But yeah, now obviously we have 2 blind seals. What do? In rehabilitation, you have 3 options. You rehabilitate and release. You rehabilitate and realize they're non-releasable. And at that point you go, okay, well, if you're non-releasable, sometimes unfortunately you have to make the decision that best case is euthanasia. Or you find a home for them potentially. Unfortunately, euthanasia in rehabilitation is an option for a lot of animals, especially if their quality of life post getting them kind of healed up is not going to be great.
So if they would live a really unpleasant, terrible life in the ocean.
Yeah, in the ocean or wherever. So you have to make these hard decisions sometimes. We've been able to bring them into our center. We've been able to get them comfortable, figure out what's going on. So for us to make that decision, obviously, is very hard. But at the same time, you have to do what's best for the animal. And then sometimes you put them through and they're doing amazing, and then you think you make a great ambassador for this program, for your species. And then we work with fisheries to be able to either deem them non-releasable or and then find a good accredited home for them. Some animals have gone to other places. We've been very fortunate, obviously, we've got our facility, our mothership that we ship them off to. So we'll work with fisheries to be able to say, hey, this is what we're seeing, and then they agree, and we go through the process of deeming them non-releasable from that level. So those 2 make great. I mean, I can go through a bunch of the animals at the aquarium, and
I'd love that.
Yeah.
We met a sea lion as well.
Cinco.
Yes, Senor Cinco.
Oh, he has my heart.
Tell me all about him.
Oh, see, okay, so he's probably in my 5. I may do 10 by the end.
Oh, please do.
Yeah. He was found, his name is Senor Cinco. He was found on Cinco de Mayo, I think in 2017.
On Spanish Banks.
On Spanish Banks. So it was kind of like this little Spanish theme going on. Yeah, so he, again, blind, for different reasons though, which we didn't realize until we brought him in and were able to stabilize him. And then when we did full body x-rays, we realized that he had a bullet lodged in his skull, which did render him blind, which is terrible. I know it's the human cause aspect that really is just horrible to that. But we look to going saying, hey, we've had the opportunity to be able to rehabilitate him, give him a second chance at life, and he's got an amazing home over there, and he's the best animal ever, and he's.
I think I'll need you to hear you.
Yeah,
do
I
it
knew you were
again.
going to do this. I knew it. It's more of like an R versus like the roaring of.
Yeah, they're like, ah!
It's like a bird. Bird being
Uninvited. I'm a
strangled.
bird.
Yeah.
That's why I needed you to do it. I was
I
like,
know.
I can't do it
I
reliably,
need to
but-
we'll just get people just Google it. The difference between a Steller sea lion and a California sea lion. It's just the traditional like focal that you hear on everything. But yeah, he's amazing. We love him. He's like a gentleman's. He's just the best. He just gives like great hugs too.
Oh.
Yeah. No.
We were
but yeah.
learning about his whiskers and
Yes.
about how he's really adapted to, because he's
Yes.
blind, to use the whiskers to kind of sense his environment.
That's one thing with Jolly or Pim. One of the seals at the
Yeah.
aquarium. When she started opening her eyes, what we noticed too, obviously her pupils were a little bit different, but also her whiskers were quite far forward. So when we are observing animals in the wild and we see a picture, we're like, oh, look at their whiskers are quite far forward. There's potential that we go, okay, like you kind of
Possibly
note
can't
that and
see.
go, oh, okay,
Yeah.
like you're using more. And I mean, of course, they do use their whiskers or their a lot when they're underwater. Hunting, foraging, like you think it's dark down there, they can't really see, so they use their whiskers to be able to catch prey and things. So they are it's a sensitive area for them. So when you're seeing them and they should be able to see and they can't, you're like, okay, we'll notice that. But yeah, he definitely brings them quite far forward. So does Jessica Seal. She's another graduate of our program she has unfortunately birdshot pellets. She was shot and rendered blind. I can't remember what year that was. Maybe 2018-ish. Came through here, saw that, blind, over the aquarium now. So you're seeing a bit of a trend, all these human-caused issues that we're seeing. So of course our program is important to be able to respond to a lot of these animals, because we don't know, looking at them, we're like, could be shot, we don't know until we bring it in, do some workup, some diagnostics. And a lot of times you go, oh, okay, great, human caused, fantastic. Sarcastically speaking, in case nobody got the sarcasm.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes. So for us to be able to kind of help those ones, though, those are the really important ones. I mean, they're all really important, but those are the ones that really stand out.
Yeah, I really hear the priority on like counteracting the negative impacts that humans have on our environment and the coast near us.
Definitely, yeah. And obviously human impact environmentally would also be oil spills. We work closely doing lots of training, and we are the Marine Mammal Rehabilitation Center that would bring in those animals. So in the event of an oil spill, I'm going to knock on wood again. I think there's wood under here. I really hope there's particle board or something. Yeah, there you go. I won't. Not for live TV. So we work with Fisheries and Oceans Canada again to be able to respond to, and Transport Canada to be able to respond and be the rehab center for marine mammals.
Yeah.
In those cases.
When we see those pictures of ducks just dripping oil, that's you guys.
Yeah, but we are, well, actually, I guess in that case I'd work with birds. Yeah, okay. That I would.
Yeah,
but that's
actually.
another story. I mean, that's what you see. You see the birds dripping in oil. The 2010 Deep Horizon oil spill that happened, the BP one in the Gulf of Mexico. That was a huge thing, and the images from that of the pelicans just in that was horrible. And that's what people picture. And that with birds, because their numbers are a lot higher population-wise. They float along the surface of the ocean. So seals, sea lions, cetaceans, they can kind of avoid a lot of that stuff. And they do for the most part. Sometimes they don't, obviously, and those will be the ones. Again, we have not been directly involved with that situation here in British Columbia. It's usually birds and of smaller numbers. But there is that potential. And of course, the way the tankers run is on the west coast of Vancouver Island, and a huge population of sea otters are on the west coast of Vancouver Island. So that's the big thing, huge worry, because that population of sea lions has just kind of really rebuilt itself after many years of just having low numbers. So great population of sea lions, but also great population of tankers going through with the potential of that. So hopefully not, because sea otters float on the surface and they rely on their coats, their fur, to thermoregulate in the water. They don't have blubber like our little seal and sea lion friends. So that's a big thing. So, working with that is a big thing that we do too, and trainings and like the mitigation, all the fun stuff involved. Not just the hands-on. The people are always like, oh, your job. They picture me with Joey, like grooming him and stuff. And it's like, that's a portion. But I'm also doing that at 3 a.m. Like, that's, I'd rather be sleeping. But yeah, that's what they picture when they say for our what we do here at the center, but there's so much more to it as well.
And actually, just on that note, one of my last questions, what happens, you get a phone call, you're like, there's a sea lion that needs to be rescued off the coast of Vancouver Island. What are the steps? What happens?
Yeah, so it's not just like, okay, got the call, let's go. Threw up the bat symbol and everybody, we get into the hovercraft and away we go. Yeah, capes
so
and all.
Walk me through what happens.
Yeah. So specifically, like say a sea lion, you have something that has, oh my God, there it is. It's happening.
The call.
It's happening.
Do you need to get that?
No.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah.
Never know.
No, I don't. No, we're good. So say if it's a sea lion that has like a packing band, like it's entangled. We will obviously ask for location, we'll get some pictures of it, and then we'll send that information to fisheries. And then we start working with fisheries to see, okay, we start involving our veterinarian too, so he can give some feedback and stuff. For that specific thing, there's a lot that goes into it. And it can be like 3 or 4 days of us monitoring, making sure the animal stays, because it can be in one spot, and then 20 minutes later hops and then it's gone again. So we need to make sure it's in the same location for an extended period of time, for us to be able to get the resources together and to be able to go out and do a full response. Because you go there and it's not there. Not that it's a waste. Oh, now it's happening again.
It's getting exciting.
I know, very exciting. Not that it's a waste of time if we go out and the animal's not there, because we've done kind of a drill. Those are our drills. We kind of look at it in that sense too.
Yeah.
We know what do we need to improve on, timing, all these things. But weather is a huge factor too. If we're on these boats, we need to be able to dart with the dart gun. Marty, you can only have so much swell. You can only have so much wind, and for the safety too of the animal and for us. We don't want to be in a boat. I mean, I think you remember Buckethead. That was
Buckethead. I think you mentioned one of the most wavy, rough.
Intense.
Rescues you'd ever done.
Yeah, I wasn't there for it. I just saw the footage of it afterwards. But that was one of their big ones. So
yeah, the boats were a little.
Oh, totally. I don't think the footage really captured. I mean, it did a bit, but not as much as it actually.
It's trying very hard. It's
the steady. Magic of television.
Yeah, I was on like 3 different boxes with my hand on the top of the boat in the camera.
Yeah.
So we were working hard to make it steady.
Oh yeah, no, you guys did amazing. You almost did too good of a job because it wasn't as dramatic. No, just kidding. It was dramatic.
Honestly, not as good as the vets and the technicians that were in there. Like, oh my, it was amazing to watch all of them on either side of the boat, just like so involved in taking care of the animal and like keeping it above water.
Oh, totally.
And coordinating from 2 boats, pinching it in there safely and keeping it safe while operating on it.
Keeping the animal safe, but also the people. Like you have like 8 people who are like hands in there. You've got, you're trying to tag, you're trying to potentially take blood, not so much in the water, but you're trying to reverse that sedation that we've given, which is also on a big needle. Like all these, and the boat's going up and down, so it can get quite intense. But yeah, so for those, it does take a bit. It takes a lot of coordination. It takes a lot of communication with fisheries, people in the area, and all that stuff. Something like a seal, like a pup. If we get a call, waiting for the phone to ring again, about a pup that's on the beach, we'll do the same thing. We'll get all the information, where it's at, how long it's been there, what's the tide line like. Like if it's at a high tide, it's low tide, we know that it's been X amount of hours it's been on the beach by itself. So we kind of, everything around, get pictures of it, look at its body condition.
Check those whiskers.
Check those whiskers. When they're tiny, they're kind of like still crumpled up a little bit. Yeah, so we often monitor the seal pups for, depending, maybe a day, maybe overnight, maybe the day, or maybe two. Like, sometimes they'll go for a swim, they'll come back, or the mums come at nighttime too. So
when there's less people.
Exactly, yeah. So there's lots of factors that go into each case, and each case is so different. But if it's been there for 24 hours, same spot, looking like it's going to be, it hasn't eaten or nursed, then that's when we potentially intervene at that point too. So yeah, each case is so different, and knowing when to respond and when not to is sometimes probably one of the trickiest parts of our job, because you don't want to take it away from its mom. Nature, mom's going to do the best job possible. We're going to intervene when what we've concluded is potentially the right thing to do, and then bring it in. We're going to transport it in a kennel. We're going to put it into a potentially stressful area, even though we're trying to. Wow, it is busy.
There's so many seals.
This is great. This is
Maybe
good.
when we come back,
there you go.
Come back next week and it'll be full.
Yes. Well, I don't know about full. I hope not full.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully I wouldn't actually.
A couple's
really
not
good.
bad. Yeah. Good. Yeah, a couple would be good. I don't know what I was talking about, but yeah, for the seals, they
talking about making
the right thing to do,
about when to intervene.
Yeah, they so you want to make sure you're making the right decision, because you bring them into this is a stressful environment for them until they kind of get used to it, sort of thing. And you don't want them getting too used to it, because you don't want them being habituated. So then there's that aspect too. Seals are fairly resilient, and that's why they're an easier animal to rehabilitate. I shouldn't say easier. They're easier because they don't habituate that easily. So all the care that we're giving them, they're not saying, "Oh, okay, good." They're not going,
"Nice,
yeah.
Bring me meals every day."
Exactly. Like, so hands-on when they're in the intensive care side, but once they're in the pools, we let them kind of just go a little feral.
Oh, good.
Them and their little friends, they can learn their bad habits off each other. It's like a little preschool.
Perfect.
Yeah, without the germs. And they get to, start competing for fish. They get to kind of do their normal seal things. And when they see us, they're like, "Oh, human.
What are you doing here?"
We're weighing them, so they don't like us to be able to restrain them. They don't like us, one of their last interaction with us is taking bloods and measurements. So they're like, they don't like us, which is great. We don't want them to like us. We want them to be out in the wild and think of humans as stranger danger.
That makes sense. And complete opposite of what the Vancouver Aquarium does. Because they said they were trying to make every interaction with the animal quite positive.
Yes.
But whereas you're obviously trying to be gentle and good to the animals, you don't want them to habitualize.
Habituate. No, I can't say it. Habituate. Yeah, so once they're over there, these are animals that are, out there. They want to be able to teach them things that humans aren't bad.
Sorry, out there, you mean at the aquarium?
At the aquarium, sorry, yes. Yeah. When they're at the aquarium, it's a much different program, like you said. They need to be able to work with those animals, to be able to do exams on them, health exams, and a lot of husbandry things. So when they build that relationship, the trainers and the animals, it's an actual relationship that they're building. The trust is there from both sides. They're able to I guess, teach them things or train them things so that they can, they go like that, open their mouth, and you can look in and see their teeth. So vet staff come out and go, "Oh, okay, look, I can see their teeth." So a lot of what they're getting them to do is to be able to, husbandry and health checks. Those animals are some of the most amazing animals that I've ever seen or worked with. But also the people there that deal with those animals and on a daily basis, they're just amazing too. Like the relationships that they have with those animals is just so cool to see.
Yeah, we got to meet Jess this morning, and
she's amazing.
She's
Just amazing.
awesome.
She totally is. Yeah.
And speaking of amazing, this has been fantastic chatting with you. Is there anything else you want to mention before we say goodbye?
I don't know. I mean, we could probably sit here for another hour.
I know, it's hard putting off the questions. It's such an interesting topic, and there's so much to see, so much to learn about.
It just means you have to come back.
Okay.
When we have animals on site, and you can meet some of our amazing volunteers who can
That's our hope.
Yeah.
We really do hope we can come back in August and see the center when it is full of animals and you guys are at the peak.
And Mike will believe you that we actually have animals here. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. It's just a setup. Yeah. I'm actually going to go back in the office and like turn my Netflix back on when you guys are gone. So
I don't believe it. You run around like crazy. I've not seen many people as busy as you and Emily right now.
Yeah.
Very abnormal.
Yeah.
I mean, we're abnormal, so if we just fit right in, I guess.
The downtime, the lull.
Yeah, yes, that too. I knew that's what you meant. Of course, I agree. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a lovely conversation, sitting in the middle of the hospital, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's so great to I could actually see your face, not to actually have a camera in front of it. So it's nice to actually have a conversation.
It's nice. Yeah, we met first when I was operating a show that Lindsay was starring in. And so I was like this for 3 months. And so I was really just this half of my face. Yeah. Do I look more familiar now?
Well, actually, yeah, now you mentioned it.
And with a mask, maybe?
Yeah. Oh, and then there was the mask, too. Yeah. It's just that one eye. It's just your left eye. That's all I recognize.
Surprise, I do actually have two.
Yes, and a mouth and a nose.
Fully complete.
It's a full body, not just a camera.
Anyways, thank you. Smile. So confident right now.
She goes into 2002 SUV.
Paul Quiggle has kindly agreed to sit down with us and tell us all about diving. Hi, Paul.
Hey, everyone. How are we doing today?
How are you today?
I am doing excellent. Thank you.
Yeah?
Just had a great dive with you two lovely people. We saw some cool stuff.
So cool.
Right?
Where did we go? Walk us through it.
Where did we go? So we went to White Cliff Park, which is out in Horseshoe Bay. And so that's one of our most popular dive sites around Vancouver. Mainly just because parking and bathrooms. That's a big factor. That is important things. But it's a marine protected area, and so we have a really nice protected bay for training. Really nice advanced site on the outside for a wall. Just see all sorts of cool different stuff depending on which depth you go to. Today you kind of got best of both worlds. Got a bit of the wall and some of the inside. Really cool big anemone garden. Lots of cool critters. Had some harbor seals playing at the surface.
So cool. So cool.
What was your favorite part about the dive?
Ooh. Once I figured out my buoyancy.
Right? That's a winning moment.
That was very top enjoyment. I love the anemone garden. We were there once before when we were learning to dive. And to just go and see them, like, I didn't get to see any pop in today, but like seeing the differences between them popped in and like out. For those who haven't seen, an anemone is anywhere from like this big to like, they can get massive.
Huge.
Meters?
Yeah, probably almost 2 meters sometimes I've seen. Taller, almost as tall as me. When they're fully stretched out on top of wrecks on those big walls. So
cool.
Yeah,
they look almost like, these ones look like cauliflower because they're white, but kind of a broccoli, cauliflower, pop.
A little bit of a palm tree aspect to it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get some orange ones, some white ones. We have some really cool invertebrate life here in Vancouver, which we're lucky enough to have. The big anemones, huge sea stars, biggest octopus in the world, giant Pacific octopus. We looked for one today, didn't find any, but we'll have to get you back for another dive to find that.
We'll have to dive so much more. There's so much more to see.
Absolutely.
What else are kind of things you often see, say, just in White Cliff Park? What is another common
Yeah,
things?
so we get lots of crabs. Like I said, big invertebrates, the sea cucumbers, sea pens.
Sea pens?
Sea pens. We saw those today, actually. So it's an orange, almost looks like a giant plume. So the sea pen, they call it. So it was down in the sand.
Looks like a feather pen.
It does, yeah. Big nudibranchs, so sea slugs. We all get excited about sea slugs underwater. Exactly, yes, yeah. There's some pretty cool ones. We'll have them just like this big sometimes, and orange and the white, yellows we have, really cool. Summertime, we get the dogfish sharks that come up in the shallow times too. Yeah, everyone's afraid of sharks, don't worry. They're nice and easy and chill. Yeah, exactly. Maybe even this big. But then again, we're divers, so we lie about how big things are. So
this
right,
big.
And how many things we saw. So it's all good. What else? The jellies. So we saw a jelly being eaten today by the anemones. I don't know if I pointed that out to you.
That's what I was seeing.
Yes, that was a fried egg jelly that was being eaten by multiple anemones.
Yes. I was like, what is that creature holding on to the anemone?
Yeah,
it
was the other way
jelly.
around. Yes, slowly digesting it. Yeah, but we get the huge lion mane, the long tentacles,
meters and meters of tentacles.
Yes, that many students like to run into, and we try to make them avoid it. We go, don't go over there, and where they go, right into the tentacles. So, but that's all right. We do our best to redirect.
As a recent student, I must say, my personal favorite is inadvertently doing the complete opposite of what I'm asked to do.
Right, perfect. You're in line with most students, and it's great. It's good. Yeah.
It's a skill of mine.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow, that is so cool. So many different things to see.
Yeah, we saw lingcod as well. We didn't talk about the fish. We talked about the
yeah.
invertebrates. So lingcod, we saw a couple rockfish, maybe tucked around in there. More on the other side of the wall, you'd see those. But what else? Trying to think.
Fish.
Yeah.
Nudibranch.
You see, your signs. You've been paying attention in
octopus.
class. No octopus today, unfortunately.
No octopus today. But I can sign it.
You can.
So it's almost like the same.
It's almost
Look at
like
this.
we saw
Look at
it,
this.
right? Done.
Same.
Box check.
I can even hide it behind a wall.
Perfect. And most of the time it's tucked in a crack like this big and you can see one sucker. So everyone's kind of like, okay, cool. I don't know what I saw. And then you tell them afterwards, like, yeah, all right.
That's why when we were learning, we actually saw that octopus in the same spot in that crack. And I did exactly that. I came in, I was like, what are we looking at?
Right.
And I came in way too fast too. Screwed up my buoyancy and just a whole mess. But then the instructor was so kindly like, no, look closer. And I was like, oh!
Yeah, no, we had some pretty epic encounters with the octopus. So then when they're out and the arms will be, my arm length are bigger, suckers this big. It can be pretty impressive. Yeah.
Sounds
very
almost
cool.
intimidating at that point.
It can be. When they're that big, you kind of give them their space. But some people like to have them come envelop them and just hang on to your rag and you're good to go.
I'm not.
Maybe not yet. We'll get your buoyancy
okay.
down first, and then we can do the octopus attack maybe.
Once I start diving like this rather than this.
You got halfway there today. It was good.
Let's talk about that. You had 2 students today.
I
How
did.
was it going back to instructing? Because you've instructed for 8 full years.
I did, yeah.
But you stopped instructing about 4 years ago.
Correct, yeah.
To move into managing the shop.
Yeah.
How was it going back to instructing today?
It was great. Yeah. I had a good welcome back with you two. So thank you for that. It comes back pretty quickly after you've taught probably almost 1,000 students. It kind of becomes second nature. So I spent half the dive swimming backwards instead of the whole dive swimming backwards. So I count that as a win. I actually got to turn around and see some stuff versus just making sure you guys were still with me. But
only had to catch us a few times.
Yeah, I think just the one time. So it's pretty impressive for the 5th dive after your open water course. So a lot of times it takes a dry suit diving. It can be some work, but once you get it, it's really nice and warm too. So, which is a bonus.
Yeah, I wore 3 layers of fleece today, and I felt very good about that.
Yeah.
Very good.
And then your last dives, you were about a month ago, right?
Yeah, we got certified end of March.
Okay.
So, yeah, about 6 or 7 weeks ago now. So just to the point where we needed a refresher.
Right. Nice.
Yeah.
And then, so how were you, warmth-wise compared? Were you good, much better today, or?
It was so nice coming out into sunshine.
Yes.
That was
always
amazing. But when I think about diving before getting certified, I was like, okay, I'm in a wetsuit, it's warm out, I'm in the tropics. Tell me about diving in a dry suit.
Yeah. So, a lot of people, I think, are a bit intimidated by it. And so it is a lot all at once. And so if you're learning how to dive in a dry suit in our local waters, I kind of liken it to learning how to drive, stick shift in the snow at the same time, right? But you get certified here, you can dive anywhere. And so, after the first dive in the pool, it's a little bit awkward. And then maybe your first couple dives in the ocean, it is. But you gradually, every time builds. And, I think if you guys look back to when you first went in the pool and then compared to your dive today, a lot more comfortable, I'd imagine, right?
Definitely. I feel I did a phenomenal job of making it quite awkward right off the hop. So.
Well, you weren't awkward today, so it was really good. Yes,
Just
but
my
nice. But no, diving in a dry suit, like I say, can be intimidating for a lot of people. I think a lot of people are scared to try it, but realistically, it's not that hard. You get in, you do a couple of dives, maybe 10 dives, you have it down, and then you can dive year round. It's pouring rain, you can go out in the snow. I've had some really cool dives out in the snow. And you wear nice fluffy undergarments and you got your jammies on underneath, you're good to go.
Sounds pretty nice.
And I think we're really lucky that we can throw a dry suit on, drive 30 minutes, and we can be in some amazing dive sites right here. You don't have to hop on a plane, any of that, right?
Tell me more about that. What is it about the West Coast that makes it such beautiful, remarkable diving?
Good. I think we have a lot of nutrients that come up with the cold water. So we have huge invertebrates, like we talked about already. We have some really beautiful topography. So we have, like I said, those protected bays, but we have a ton of just big sheer walls. Locally, We have just a couple different sites. We have some dive parks at Porto Cove where they've done a couple different purpose sunk wrecks, and so a lot of life is built on there, and it's really an amazing time to go dive there. Vancouver Island, you have the kelp forests, and so just so much life. It's really amazing to see what's down there below the water, because most people driving around don't really know that. You see that kind of greenish hue at the top, and who knows what's down there, but we do, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, like, I've lived my entire life on the West Coast, and even in 5 dives so far, I've seen so many things that I just hadn't seen.
Absolutely.
Despite swimming my whole life here. It's remarkable. So then, like, how does Vancouver and, like, the West Coast, say all of the West Coast, compare on a global scale? Like, is this way worse diving than if you went to the tropics, or, like, how do they all compare?
You know, I think it's hard to compare and say better and worse. There's difference, right? So yes, the tropics is super easy. You can roll in maybe a board short and a rash guard and swim around, and you see some colorful fish and a nice reef and some clear water, and you know, that's cool, and it's fun and it's easy. It's also expensive to get on an airplane and go do that and stay there. And so I think that we're lucky that we have such great things here close that we can see, and you know, there are some just epic sights that you don't get to see, things like that giant Pacific octopus out. You know, you don't get that around the rest of the world. The huge invertebrate life, like I mentioned, and then you know, kelp forests, all the life. Vancouver Island, you know, Jacques Cousteau named it some of the best diving in the world. So we're just really lucky. Also here we have I don't know if you've heard about a glass sponge reef. So it's an ancient reef, and huge, like cloud sponges or glass sponges, and just massive. Oh. And so that they thought they were gone. They've been found recently. Wow. And we have a really accessible one here right in Howe Sound. And so even at White Cliff, if you go down on the wall about 30 to 40 meters, 100 feet plus, you can see some huge size of cars, and they're just really cool and intricate. So just really things you would never imagine that would be there here in our waters that are there. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. So what's it like for like people who don't dive and don't know what it's like? Can you describe that experience of when you're down at depth? What's it like?
Well, I think I can describe it. I mean, you're more recent to the diving experience as a new diver, right?
But I want to hear your opinion.
Well, fair enough. All right. So so what I love about diving is just how peaceful it is underwater. So you're not thinking about your daily life. You're not thinking about your to-do list, your emails, or whatever's going on. You're down below, you're diving, you're just thinking about your breathing. You hear your breathing, go in. If you're doing it right, 4 seconds in, a nice slow 6 out, right? Keep your buoyancy good to go, right? And it's very, very Zen, yoga-like sort of thing, but underwater, and it's, I don't know, it's just another world. And you see things that most people never will see in their own life, and personally. Maybe on TV or in your video that you're going to show everyone the amazing shots that you got. But I don't know. Amazing. We'll go with that. So that's really what I love about diving. I don't know. And for you, like, what did you tell us where you, like, tell me where you are now.
Well, Mike and I have done 5 dives. We have not yet gone to 2 hands to count. 5 whole dives. We got certified in March, and now we're here, our first ever kind of out of the dive course dive.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's insane, really. Like the sense of buoyancy is super strange. Like, I mean, strange in trying to manage it and not float up to the ceiling, not crash down and sink everything.
Yeah.
But just the just like being there, like floating along with the current a little bit, seeing so much, and like, I don't know, there's a really neat driftiness to it almost.
Just kind of a flow down there to everything going on. Yeah, absolutely.
The weightlessness. And once I kind of like managed my buoyancy and found a way to kind of stay still horizontal, stiller, like breathing in, breathing out, and not like shooting up and dropping down. It was so peaceful.
Yeah. Well, that just takes practice and training, which we happen to offer here at the Diving Locker. Did I mention that? Yeah.
Oh, tell me about the Diving Locker.
So, we train divers here. I think we're one of the busiest dive shops in Vancouver. I think we have the best instructors personally. And, we can train you all the way up from open water, all the way through Dive Master, a variety of different specialties. So, you get your dry suit, your advanced. There's all sorts of cool things that you can do, in addition to just the fun dives that we offer, too.
That's awesome. And how long have you been working with the diving locker?
I have been here now almost 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so did you learn to dive and certify yourself here, or did you go elsewhere?
Nope. So I got certified in Seattle, down in the U.S., in the snow in a wetsuit, which was, I'm still surprised I'm diving after that and survived that. But, I did that, did some volunteer work at the Seattle Aquarium, so I got to play around in there as a diver, which was super fun.
What was that like?
Visibility is always good, so that's a bonus. You always know the animals you're going to see. You don't have to hunt for them. So you get to play with wolf eels, you get to feed all the fish, and get the glorious job of scrubbing windows with a nice soft cloth. It's very exciting.
Fancy.
Yeah. But we have full face masks that we wear and mic'd up, and so you get to do shows for the kids and things. So that was pretty fun. And then kind of quit my other life of the business world and decided to become a diver full time. So I went down to the Caribbean and worked in Roatan for a year.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was super fun, a good lifestyle, but realized I wanted something else. So came up to Canada, and
What brought you back up to Canada?
the love of my life, of course. Yeah, so
A good reason.
a good reason. Yeah, but so I've been here ever since, and I'm loving it, and diving thousands of times up here, and just every time is still fun. So.
Wow.
And part of that, I think, for me, is also seeing the excitement that you guys have, right? So you come up with a big smile on your face, and whether it's they saw a crab for the first time or two.
Pretty cool.
Did you see the sea star down there? I did. It was really exciting. But no, it just the energy you get from the brand new divers. I think that keeps us all going as instructors, because, being underwater is fun, but that energy is infectious, I think.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So how many students do you think you've taught in your years?
That's a good question. I meant to look that up. Probably about 1,000 or so. I'd give or take. So yeah, I'd need to look that up. But yeah, I taught full time for 8 years. Loved it, and it was a great experience. Teaches you the value of patience, which is just great for preparation for being a parent. So you're all good there.
I was so impressed with your patience today. Mike and I made so many mistakes.
Don't be too mean on yourselves. You guys did a pretty good job. Especially for dive number 5. Once you get to 2 hands, then we can start being a little rougher on you.
And it was awesome too, like trying to we brought a camera down for the first time, and to have the GoPro and try and manage. I attached it to myself, which I'm really happy about. I don't know how it would have gone without that. And with your light on my hand, it really helped too. But that was exciting, trying to manipulate there's a shot, and trying to use my operating film brain, but not forget about the fact I was completely submerged underwater.
Right. Take a big excited breath and whoop, there you go. Yeah. So,
oh gosh.
Yeah, it's a whole different level to do video work, picture work underwater.
It is. The professionals that make careers out of it are so impressive.
It is impressive. I've never been brave enough to do that. I'll just stick with taking students underwater. I don't. And
well, in your defense, you did bring a camera today and had no chance to use it because you were too busy catching eyes.
Well, that's all right. I figure diver safety first over the shot. Now, if I'd seen something really cool, I would have had an internal debate to see what I wanted to do about that. But,
I respect that.
Yeah, but I figured stick with you guys for this one. That was the better way to go.
We appreciate it. Yeah. I'm glad we both came back okay.
Good. I am too.
On that, what do you find students usually make mistakes at? What is the most common mistakes you see underwater?
Yeah, it's funny. It's simple because people have a hard time with buoyancy to start, and a lot of it is just moving around too much, which then leads to your breath getting out of sync. And so it's a really simple thing, just to kind of stop, slow down, and do a nice, deep, slow, steady inhale, and then down from your stomach. And a lot of people get into the up in their chest, and then they're not comfortable, and then the buoyancy is out of whack, and it's kind of a snowball. So it's easy enough to stay, just calm down, right? It's just deal with the situation rationally, right? But slow, steady, relaxed breathing, and then you're calm, and it just makes a world of difference, and you can enjoy it better. You can handle any sort of weird problems that come up or whatever it is. You guys, we had a bit of a current today, some anemones going sideways, and you guys handled it really well. So that can stress some people out too, and so you're in a different world, right? And some people's mammalian brains, I think, well, I'm not supposed to be down here, and start breathing really fast, and you're like, no, just relax, we got this, we can do it.
Yeah, it's surprising to me how different it is breathing through a regulator.
Right.
I was really not anticipating that difference, because I was like, I can breathe. I breathe all the time. This will be
Every
fine.
day. I got this.
I've been in the ocean. I can breathe. I can even swim.
right?
It's going to be easy. Like, no, it was like quite significantly different pulling air out of the regulator and letting it go.
Yeah. So it's good to be a mouth breather if you're in the diving environment.
Which is shocking.
Right?
That just seems wrong. But
you're all set ahead of time.
I see it. I did keep trying to breathe through my nose.
It happens, yeah.
I had to clear my mask halfway through.
And that's the hardest thing for a lot of people is just breathing through their mouth, putting a mask on their face and getting used to that. That can take a whole first lesson sometimes.
I can see it.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a pretty amazing world down there.
Is it ever? And what do you find is like, have you seen any very ridiculous stories? Anyone get their feet full of air and shoot up to the surface?
Yeah, I mean, that's countless times. And usually you try to catch them, but you see the feet starting to go and grab a hold. But sometimes it's just like, nope, all right, we'll catch you at the surface. And that's why we keep our training dives a little bit shallow, especially when people are getting used to the dry suits. And so, that's always a challenge. And making sure people don't run out of air is always a good bonus underwater. So, we've been good with that, thankfully. No issues so far.
What are some of the most ridiculous mistakes you've seen?
Oh yeah, so no naming names. No.
Unless it was me or Mike.
No, you guys were good. You're not even on the ridiculous level. It's fine. No, I mean I had to catch Mike, but that's all right. We don't have to worry about that. He came back down. He was trying really hard. He got most of the way there by himself.
Did a good somersault too.
He did. He did.
Yeah,
It was good. I know.
Yeah.
It was slightly aided, but we don't need to. We need help. With that.
I was watching that happen. And I was like, oh, "Can I help?" And I was
No,
like, "No, not
please
at all.
don't.
Better film this."
That is the other thing. I've seen buddies try to help where instructors are intervening, and then the buddy slingshots up to the surface because they're not weighted the same way that we are, right? So it's seeing people spit their regs out down at 40 feet is always a bit of a shocker in your system, and so you scramble to shove a reg in their mouth while you're going up pretty fast with them.
Man.
Just remembering to exhale the whole time.
And in layman's terms, what's the issue there?
The issue there, well, drowning kind of a little bit, but minus that, no, we don't want to get too. But if you come up too fast, then you can hurt yourself if you're not exhaling. And number one rule in scuba, do you remember it from your class?
Breathe.
No, it's always tip your instructor.
Oh.
No. Oh. No, just kidding. Yes, it's never stop breathing. Right. Actually, wait, I thought it was never pee in your wetsuit. That was number one, right?
I think it was always pee in your dry suit.
No, stop that. Never pee in your dry suit, please. We don't even. There's a charge for that, by the way, just so you know.
Which we have never been charged.
No.
I want that to be clear. Neither Micah and I have been charged.
We comped them, it's fine.
Oh no.
Yeah.
My mom is going to be horrified
Right.
watching this.
Right. Not sure. Never mind.
It's okay.
Anyway,
My dad will be proud.
Yeah. No. I mean, I try not to catalog all the stupid things that happen because I think you just try to teach yourself how to prevent them. So you see when people are starting to breathe a little bit extra heavy, or maybe their feet are starting to go up. You try to anticipate all that, and then that's the key. And also then as you guys as divers is being more proactive about managing something, right? So you feel like you're going to go up, little adjustments instead of the pump and dump that most new divers do, where I'm going down, and then I'm going up too fast, drain and come down. So I mean that's all part of the learning curve, though, right? I mean we anticipate that. If we couldn't handle that, then I don't think we'd be very good instructors.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And that's what I was like recognizing today is just like how patient you were with us and how much you were like, oh, I can see, like before I would clue into like, oh, I need to be doing things. You'd be like, your air, fix your air. They're like, oh yeah. Right, I'm underwater.
I have done this a few times, right? So, I mean, I think we all have our areas of expertise. You can tell me about the camera work a little bit better than I can. So it's...
Again, hopefully, if I couldn't, we would not be doing
We would not know. If I were running this, we'd be in trouble. We'd be in big trouble. Yeah.
Oh man, if we'd been trying to run the diving today, no one would have made it out alive.
Well, we would have made it to the surface probably. That's all right. We wouldn't have seen much, but that's okay.
We just would have never made it down again.
No, just pop back up. It's all good.
Man, yeah, but that's like what we were talking about earlier. Is like it's so cool to talk to people about their expertise. Like it's awesome hearing everything you have to say about diving and like chatting it through.
Well, and it's that's why I really like working in the diving industry, because it's easy to be passionate about what we do. Right? I mean, I'm not selling brakes or insurance. So, I think people genuinely get excited about it. And, there's some people naturally have a little fear and nervousness when they first start, and you work through that. And that's a rewarding piece of it, is seeing people work through their problems and then getting certified and then just coming back and doing more and more things, more dives. And it's fun to see the progression that people go through. Especially if they start off struggling and then achieve that, it's pretty rewarding. Not that you guys struggled. It's okay.
That wasn't. I'd like to think that other people struggled too.
I was talking about other people struggling, not you guys.
That makes complete sense, though. Seeing that progression, seeing people improve, and knowing you had a hand in it.
Yeah, it is. It is nice.
Sometimes literally.
Literally,
yeah.
Yes, that's good. Yes, many times literally. That's funny.
What else keeps you diving? Like, what else do you love about the instructing and the managing and working in this industry?
Well, I think, like I said, it's fun to be excited and just talking about diving. It's easy to do that. People come in, they're excited about it. People are buying new gear for diving. It's a fun purchase. And I think that there's just amazing stuff to see underwater there, trying to share that with other people. Also so that people know about it so that they can protect it. Because if people don't know what's there, then they can't really care about it, right? They see just this big, endless pile of ocean. Well, we can dump anything we want in there, right? No, but when you go down and you see just the little bit that we saw right there on the shore at a very busy park, you can imagine what else is all around.
Yeah. As soon as you underwater, you're like, I see why every diver is a conservationist. It
right?
makes sense.
Yeah. And when you feel like you're too good at photography on land, then you can go underwater and just be really bad at it to start all over again. And if you have way too much money, you can also go spend that on underwater camera gear too. So that's a double bonus. That you kind of have that to look forward to.
I really appreciate that. I feel like I did a good job of dipping my toe into doing terrible at underwater video today.
No, you got a good start. You know what? Your battery was charged and you had a memory card. So that's a win in underwater photography.
If I couldn't do that after 10 years in the film industry, I would be worried.
Yes. Well, you come in with a good base because had a lot of good dives I've seen and I haven't gotten recorded because people didn't have their camera working properly.
Yeah, I mean, it's an easy mistake to make, but I definitely worked quite a few years where literally my entire job was charging the batteries.
Right.
So,
okay, so if you didn't do it right, we have a problem here. Nice.
Yeah, we would be worried.
Yeah.
So you've dove a ton here on the West Coast.
I have, yeah.
Where else have you dived? What else do you find beautiful to dive in?
Yeah. So my personal favorite, I think, is still in Malaysia, in Sipadan Island. Just an epic dive site. Swimming into a tornado of barracuda. You come up at parts, you go back in, and then it's swirling around you in the middle, and you just can't even describe it. You just have to do it, right? Diving in Cozumel, the drift diving, cruising around, seeing huge eagle rays, just barely flicking, and then they move, and you're just kicking away and breathing super hard and can't go anywhere. It's pretty cool to see how we don't. It's fun to be underwater, but we're really not designed to be under there. And it's like seeing the sea lions come and play, and you see them waddle around on land, and then underwater, just super graceful, can turn and make a little S shape and park above your head and fly away, and wow. It's pretty epic. Diving with dolphins in Roatan, I've been really lucky with that. What else?
Well, let's go into a couple of those a little bit more. Yeah. So tell me more about diving with sea lions. That'd be near here, right?
It is, yeah. So up on Vancouver Island, there's near Hornby Island is we go up there and happen to dive in an area where sea lions come along and play with us, and it's really fun. And I think the sea lions are unique because they interact with you, like they're checking you out. Whereas most of the fish, I think you saw, they don't really care. We blow some bubbles and they take off. Whereas sea lions will come in and pull on your fin, or maybe just come right at your face and play with you. And it's a really unique interaction. And had that with dolphins one time in Roatan too. And it's just kind of those are the things that stick in your brain.
Yeah,
really
completely.
Cool.
Describe it more to me. Like, what was it like, the feeling of being underwater with those sea lions and seeing them around you?
It's just like a ball pit of puppies, basically. Except really big puppies that can fly around everywhere.
It's giant puppies.
Yeah, right. Just think about that. It's a unique thing. So like a wall of sea lions coming at you. It's really quite cool. And so that I think is a unique thing that you don't get in the Caribbean reefs or something like that. We have some really cool stuff here.
That's really neat. And the dolphins, what was that like? How did it feel?
Just a chance encounter one time. I actually had someone doing their open water course. It was like dive number 3. And
my God.
I know. So they got to play with dolphins. Like, it must be like this all the time. And you're like, no, this was pretty much a one-time deal. But they kind of cruise along, you do a little eye-to-eye contact, and it's pretty. It's very cool. It's something you stick with, and just seeing them play around, and they interacted for a bit, and then they take off. But it was just something very cool. Yeah.
That'd be amazing. And what was it like? What was it like diving in Malaysia? Like visually, what was it like?
Oh, just the colors. Just the coral, and it's just blows you away. Just this underwater tapestry, and just the fish, the diversity and abundance is really crazy. From the tiniest little pygmy seahorses to seahorses.
This big?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be cool.
Little pygmy, that's what they call them, right? Very cool.
But
yeah.
I was like, I feel like pygmy could be.
You would think.
Here.
Yeah. So you got bigger seahorses in other parts, but and then what else? A flamboyant cuttlefish. I remember the little guy that just pulses colors, and it's very just a crazy, almost alien experience.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and like I said, the abundance, the diversity, it's impressive.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Do you think diving is something everyone should get into?
Not everyone is made for diving. I'm not going to lie. I'd say, but most people should do it. There are some people that they come, they try, and that's a minority, right? I mean, like a 1%.
Yeah.
But I'd say that if you have the means, then absolutely do it. It's such a different experience. You're in a whole nother part of the world that very few people get to be in, and it's otherworldly almost. So I would say definitely give it a try. And also keep giving it a try even after just the first night. Maybe you might not like the first night of taking your mask off or something like that, but means to an end, you get to see some cool stuff down the road.
Yeah, I gotta say, after there's a couple of pool dives. It was like I think I'd had a long work day and not much sleep leading up to it. But after I got out, I was like, in points in there, I was like, I am frozen, I am lightheaded, I hate this, and I was like, uh-oh. Yeah, we'll see. We'll stick it out and see what happens.
And that's it. And so not every single dive is going to be a great dive. But every dive you come back from is a great dive, in my mind, right? So you just set your standards pretty low, and I lived.
Success!
Yes, we're good. We brought back all the students today. It was a win. So and I mean, with anything in life, you're going to have there's certain times where maybe it's not the best, but then if you stick with it and have just some of those amazing magical moments that stick with you for the rest of your life, so it's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it's just so magical being down there. It's so wild. As soon as we dropped down for the first dive, I was like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you guys are just getting started too, which you have so many different places to explore, right? And it's all out there for you.
Oh, I'm so excited. Where are the different places someone can go with their certification?
Around the world, really, right? And and that's the nice part about open water. You can get started and go locally. We have kind of a couple different main areas where I think diving is really, really big here, right? So here in Vancouver, we have a couple different sites. It's very convenient. We're 20 minutes from downtown. On the island, there's just a whole another scene there, and so we will do regular trips over to the island and make a weekend out of it, all different parts of the island, and then you even do some day trips as well over there. But that's a huge area and lots of different amazing dive sites on the island as well. Sunshine Coast also has a pretty big dive characteristic, I guess, and we do some trips over there regularly as well. Boat dives. We have some really nice artificial reef, or artificial wrecks. So big military ships that were all cleaned out and sank and on purpose. And so those are really fun dives to check those out too.
Is it true that one of them that they sank, they kind of fucked up, did it on an edge, and then?
There is one, yes, that now is sideways. Yeah, so they got a lot better after that. So most of them are upright now. So yeah.
That's cool.
It's a much better. And we have one really close here, actually, just right off Gambier Island, called the Annapolis.
Oh,
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So they're fun to just get out there and explore and do your rec specialty if you want, or just go dive.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah.
So is there something unique about Vancouver, you would say, in the community here, in the diving scene here?
I just think the proximity to amazing diving that we have is we are very lucky. And as Vancouverites, with the mountains, with the ocean, with how quickly we can get into nature, right, and still be 20 minutes away from the city. So I think that is a huge, unique characteristic that Vancouver has over most other places. Yeah.
It's pretty magical.
Right? It really is.
Pretty nice.
That's why we pay so much for housing, right?
Sure. So tell me more about the community. Is there a big community for diving here? Is there a huge amount of people?
I don't know I don't know if it's a huge number of people, but we've consistently been training people here every single year, get new divers coming in. So there's a constant influx of new divers. How many stay local versus how many travel abroad? It's hard to say. I mean, we're always looking at that. I think that there's an ever-growing community here still, especially since COVID. You know, a lot of people, we were lucky enough to have local dive sites, so if we couldn't travel, we could go do still some amazing diving around here. And so it definitely had, I think, a bigger resurgence then, and still continues to grow. It's not exponential growth, I think, but at least for local diving, it's still definitely steady growing going on. I see our classes and just the number of people that are out and still diving. It's nice to see it strong and thriving.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And how does the dive community here compare to other cities?
You know, just for city-wise comparison for my purposes, when I started in Seattle, I think there's a lot more of a dive club focus there versus in Vancouver, there's more of dive shop centric. So people come and dive with dive shops until they, you know, meet other people who get more just self-sufficient, or they, you know, have their favorite instructors they like to work with and they stay in the same dive shop. And so that, I think, is a bit of a difference. And so, you know, Facebook, I think, creates its own dive clubs and meetups and things like that. But I've been kept pretty busy here with the shop, so my focus tends to be pretty shop centric. But it's
That's fair.
Yeah, but I mean, so I think it's a strong community, and all the instructors help each other out if we need something at the dive site, which is nice. And so I think it's a fairly tight knit community.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
It's a neat thing because I feel like there's a lot of people don't really realize how much of a diving scene there is here.
totally. Yeah.
So you get cold above air and you just don't even think about it.
Well, that's it. I mean, the funny thing is like wintertime when it's pouring rain, go for a dive, right? And that's the visibility is the best. And in Vancouver, you know, we don't stop because of rain, so might as well throw a dry suit on and
Might as well.
and go diving.
Have a pretty great
day. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
When is the best time of year to dive?
Typically late fall into winter is better just for visibility. You know, summertime you never know, and some days it can be you're staring at your hand. Other days, I mean, today it was actually pretty good, and saw
really
probably
nice.
20, 30 feet maybe.
Yeah.
So it's up and down, and there's no guarantees. It's nature, you know. And everyone's like, well, when will the visibility be good? And you're like, well, I don't know. If I can tell you that, I'd be much richer than I am right now.
Yeah, terrific weather.
Yeah, exactly. Some soothsayer or something, but
That'd be cool.
I know. Yeah, so it's all over the place. So I just think you can't go in with big expectations, and you just kind of go in for the experience of it, and I think you get a lot out of it.
It's quite an experience. The putting up all of your gear, putting on all of your fleece on fleece on fleece, pulling on the dry
Right?
suit,
Yeah.
hefting up. That's always the hardest part for me, hefting on the BCD and hiking
Right. Yes.
up and off.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're throwing about 100 pounds of gear on your back, right? So that's probably, yeah, good job. Yeah, well done. That's probably one of the harder things to overcome about local diving is the amount of gear. And so you can get in and do boat dives if you want. So there you're gearing up on the boat, jump right off, you're good to go.
Yeah,
so
I
that's
wanna do those.
that's a nice way to go. Yeah. Yeah. Shore diving's free. That's why a lot of people do that, but
Big ups.
big ups
Big ups.
indeed. Yes. But you know, if you're getting especially with currents and things like that, like up in Vancouver Island, Campbell River area, there's some amazing dives with drift dives, and you're not going to shore dive that. So hop on a boat, go along with the current, they pick you up. I mean, even locally, some boat dives we have are really nice that we do.
Sound amazing.
Big wall dives, yeah, it's pretty epic to see. Plus a lot less hiking, especially when you get out of the water and have to go up the hill. That's even less.
Oh,
In theory, the tank weighs less because the air's gone, but
yeah,
I don't.
it was easy.
Yeah, totally easy, right?
Yeah,
we were not
easy.
out of breath at all. No.
Oh my God, easiest part of the day. Definitely.
Yeah, so it's it just adds to your street cred as a diver. I think that if you can dive here, you got this down.
Oh yeah.
Done.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially once we get to two hands. That'll really improve the street.
Right. Dive number 6 coming up.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want people to know about Vancouver diving?
Good question. I think that, I talked about just how unique and special I think it is here, and we're lucky to have it. we should all do our part to try to protect what we have here. You know, whether it's responsible seafood choices or even controlling litter, whatever you need to do to help protect the ocean, I think is always a good thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. We didn't really end up talking about your marine biology past.
That's okay. Yeah, it was a brief stint when I was about 12, so it's all right. So we can work past that, I think.
I just think it ties in interestingly because there is so much that needs to be done in terms of conservation.
There is, yeah.
It's a big topic.
It is, and I think that probably a lot of people feel that it's bigger than them, and there's nothing that you can do. And I think even just little things we all do ourselves can have an impact in the overall piece. So, I don't know. Don't give up. Don't throw up your hands. At least do your part, right?
I agree with that.
Good.
And just for context, can you just tell us what we're sitting in front of?
We are, yeah. Okay, so we're sitting in front of our illustrious rental department here at the Diving Locker. So these are our regulators, our BCDs, and
I don't know if you can see those, but they're here.
right. I don't know if we can see the hoods and gloves and
the deathly neck seals.
Right, that everyone loves. And the lovely smelling dry suits that
they're beautiful. Mike's been hiding them.
Mike has
You
been
can't
hiding
see
them.
it,
Yes,
but-
the dry suit forest back behind
Yes.
you. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
thank you.
the excitement that we have here.
I just wanted to give a little context because
Sure.
if I were watching this, I'd be like, "What are those
Everyone's
things?"
staring around and looking at all that. Yes, yeah. We'll teach you how to use all this gear if you do the course.
Do the course.
Do the course, yeah.
Yeah. Go underwater. It's so cool.
It is awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again for
My
taking us
pleasure.
diving.
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you for making me go diving today. I appreciate it.
It was such a blast. We
Good.
are so grateful for your patience and for coming underwater with us. We were so excited to be going underwater. I'm speaking for Mike, but I know he was just as excited.
Yes.
Give it a thumbs up. So
It was my pleasure. Anytime.
thank you so much. And yeah, thank you all for watching.
Thank you.
This has been the beginning of episode 5 of Dusty Tracks, our first ever episode in Vancouver with Paul Quiggle. All right. See you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Only 5,000 kilometers left, but it's all she needs. For the 4th time, she's ready to leave the city. Heading out to find herself at age 23. First she went to Greece to smell the olive trees, then to Thailand and Mexico to be by the sea. No cross-continental drive will help she
Hey. What's happening here?
Welcome. We are setting up a hydroflex.
What's a
White's-
hydroflex?
A hydroflex is an underwater housing that allows us to shoot cinema level content underwater.
We are here in White's Camera in Vancouver, BC, and we are here, to my very, very large amount of excitement, to talk all about underwater operating and cinematography. So joining us today is Braden Haggerty, underwater DP and operator, who's kindly agreed to chat with us. Hello, how are you, Braden?
Hi. Good. Nice to meet you all.
I just kind of want to bring people into our conversation because I've been talking your ear off for, I'd say, about an hour and a half now.
Yeah. Well, I've been getting good. It's been good conversation.
That's good. It's such an honor that you're willing to sit down with us today. It's very exciting.
Thanks.
So let's start by talking about you. What started you in the film industry?
Oh, okay. I started back years ago, and I wanted to be an actress, I thought. So I started by getting extra work. But there wasn't a lot of extra work, and the very few times that I was on set, I saw all this stuff going on out there while I was sitting waiting to be a background person. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I had no idea. And I thought, I'm going to go to film school. I liked stills photography. And so I had kind of and I could understand it. And so I kind of knew cameras per se. But anyways, I signed up to go to film school. So I went to Concordia University in Montreal. I was living here, but I applied there and got in. Yeah.
And so that kind of started you on the journey into cinematography and making images?
Yeah, while I was there, I got a job in the equipment room, and I knew the cameras, so people would always love me to come out on their shoots, and I usually ended up working as a camera assistant. that was a great example of don't be good at what you don't want to do. So I ended up in the camera assisting side of it more at the beginning. Did shoot a couple little student films and stuff like that, but I don't know why. That's the one thing, I don't know why I ever put underwater with camera in my mind. I got my scuba diving certificate when I was in my early 20s before I went to film school. And when I was at film school at Concordia, I met a woman, I did a project with the NFB it was an anti-racism series thing. It was kind of, you know, conducive to current days, but they were doing it back in the early 90s. And the woman who was a cinematographer that I was helping out, I was just being her assistant or something, or shadowing her. I told her that I was interested in underwater, and she knew of a woman here named Pauline, Pauline Heaton, running a company called Water Visions, who always was happy to train people, and we would come and help her. And so when I came back to Vancouver, I did that, and I got my start with finding out about underwater, the union world, et cetera, et cetera.
And so take me back to that, when that first time you went underwater. Do you remember the first moment you were underwater with a cinema camera in general?
No. What was the first moment? I can go back to a first shoot. So what Pauline would do was great. I would go out on bigger shows and help her as an assistant with the housing that we see here, putting the camera in it and closing it up. And we had to deal with film back then as well. So loading film magazines, so much easier now. Well, and I had to do the film, put the film, so I had a lot more things to do.
And every 4 minutes often you would have to come up, right?
Every 4 minutes, the whole housing came out and came apart. And she had made her own housing, so it was it was rudimentary, but I was pretty impressed that she had made her own thing. And it got us through most shoots. Sometimes if it got more complicated, we would go to something like this that could handle more systems. It was much simpler, the actual kit. It was usually an Arri 3, which isn't, you know, that old film camera.
I do.
And then Zeiss high speeds. That was the common, you know, people didn't ask much for that, but as the years went by, the demands became more, so we moved to more complex housings. But that aside, she would send us out on smaller little shoots that would come her way, or student shoots. So there was a fellow named Kenneth Sherman, I think was the name. He was doing an Emily Carr shoot. And it was just a man, it was Neptune returning to the sea. And Pauline had a little plexi housing for an Arri S, which was even smaller than the Arri 3, and it was 16 millimeter. And what his concept was shooting a man jumping in the water and undressing, Neptune returning to the sea.
I got it, yeah.
And he had him walk off of a dock above land and then splash. We're in the Vancouver Aquatic Center. It was black and white, so we put a red filter on to make it darker, and we just used a 2K light and just the background of the pool, but it fell dark, and the guy was in the beam of light. And he undressed, and it was very beautiful. It's still one of the most beautiful things I think I've shot, because it was just this man and body and figure and clothes drifting by and bubbles and him disappearing out of the light. But we snuck it in. It was so far back, and they can't come after us now. But we snuck in this nudity thing because we were kind of off in the corner at the deep tank. But I do remember that, and that was that definitely hooked me on it, and it was a beautiful piece. And I got to see it projected, and I can't find him now to find it again.
Aww.
But
what did it feel like? What did it feel like to be underwater?
It was. I wonder if I was even on scuba. I was probably just breath holding. I might have been on scuba because it was back. I might have been on scuba. No, it was just, it's really neat. But I have to say, like we were talking about before, when I do get to, you know, sometimes there's gaps in underwater and you're like, oh, I don't even like it anyway. I never liked it. You know, you're not getting called because there's no work or whatever. But then as soon as you get back, and I do remember this feeling on Batwoman season 2, I was lucky enough to get the pilot I worked on as well. But we were doing, no, this must have been, season 2. This was the third time I was working on Batwoman, the series shot here. And I remember there had been a gap in work. And I remember we were working at the Nutco tank in North Vancouver, just over the bridge there. And, you know, whatever, getting it all arranged, get in the water, get the camera in my hand and going, oh yeah, this is why I do this, yeah.
That makes complete sense. I know just from above water operating in the indie world, just that moment when you're really at the creative point of it.
Yeah.
You're beyond all the logistics and the everything else going on.
Yeah.
Just the moment.
It's a neat dance, and because we're always floating, and your character's never, very rarely static. Once in a while, you get into a close up, and you might have them on a platform, and you're standing on a platform. But most of the time, it's a dance between you. And even now, with some of those close ups, I've gone to more. I'm usually floating always. I used to try and find ways to get myself more static if I could, but if we're a rush and it's hard for me to get some scaffold in for myself, I'm often floating. And just that whole dance with a performer, which is the important part of it, is them, is really fun. We did a show called Keep Breathing last year, and we shot on a lake. It was with Melissa Barra, was the actress, and she was really sweet, and she was amazing. She adapted to cold water and underwater. Really, she was great. John Joffin, who's a well-known cinematographer, does beautiful work, was shooting it, and I was working for him. But it was a scene where she's coming up from a plane, and we did half in, half out. When I read the script, I was like, please do lots of half in, half out with her, because I feel like with a half in, half out, which is really beautiful, for me, it's a nice break, because I can listen to everybody now. It's just normal communication. I can talk to her, she can talk to me, I can talk to the director. And we should talk about the underwater communication. But I read the script and I was like, this is half in, half out. Because when you're half in, half out, and she's been an airplane's crash and she's under the water with the airplane, and she comes up gasping for air, you're with them in the story. And as soon as you leave that water line, you're watching them. You're not with them anymore. And this brings you with them and gives that feeling of being in the water.
Really about being on their eye line, being present with them, kind of feeling what they're feeling.
Yeah. So I love, and they did. That was what they had us out for quite a bit of that. And so that was really fun to do that. Dance in the water, try to stay out of a camera's way, but I think my camera was the main one, so that little dance with the other operator. But it was Joss Oman, and he was really generous with letting me get in there, because he knew that camera was getting in there, and Kat was the other operator. They were really great. So,
that's
but
awesome.
It was beautiful, and John just loved it as well. Yeah, those are moments that when you're asking. Those are particular moments that I do recall.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about what it means to be an underwater operator. Like how you're talking about the dance that you're doing with the actors. Tell me more. What's going through your mind? What are you planning out to be in that moment there, just for your role?
For my role, once I'm finally in the water, which is the actually smaller part of it, and as I've come along and developed the way I shoot underwater, I'm more and more comfortable with everything that's going to be thrown at me. It kind of changes. What does it change? It changes. That feeling is much more fluid. So when I'm in the water, my role is to know what the shots are ahead of time, know the sequencing that will best benefit the actor, the talent, the water clarity, what we're having to move around, because I'm always on my watch, making sure I know they have a day to meet, and timing all those things together. Particularly, we did a show called Siren, and there was we had to create fake sets underwater. So now we're at the airplane. We need this scaffolding and that sculpting. Well, that will also work with this shot and with this actor. So let's have that lined up. Then we can take the scaffolding right out of the water. And so you're constantly balancing what is going to keep the day going and then keep everything working for many. Well, we have a set piece for this one. So you got to think, like, if I change the order of this, well, the set piece is blah 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 or whatever. So you do have a lot of kind of mini underwater ADing, or making it known to the ADs what was going to be the best way to go.
And an AD is?
Assistant director. So the assistant director is actually managing the time running of the set the whole day. So the director has their script and their scenes that they want to shoot, and the AD is making sure everything's running. But I also believe that a very good camera operator or main operator, which I am when I'm in the water, is time managing by letting everybody know what they're seeing, what needs to be done. So as soon as you break after a blocking, everybody's watch what's going to happen in the scene. The operator has got to say, okay, we need I need a dolly track in. For me, I need scaffolding. I get scaffolding pushed in here and there, and you're going to drive things happening right away. And you're going to be thinking about what's going to happen next and how. I'll always be like, bring this in here now, but slide that one there so we can slide it in real fast. So it's a lot of management. And then once the shot's actually happening, I need to make sure I'm ready. I'm really ready, and I'm not going to, the cable's not going to get snagged. All my guys are there, or gals, because we have a lot of women on our team. So that when the performers are in the water, and that's stunt performers or actors, it's going to go quickly, because it's the less we can keep, the less time in the water for them, the better. But we also work on water comfort. So a lot of times we just make a really friendly environment, a calm environment, a quiet environment, so that they're comfortable starting in. And usually they love just hanging by the side of the pool, playing around. Often,
that's a great sign.
Unless it's, John Voight or something, then you want to hustle along.
Quick.
Yeah. You just want to get them in and out. Yeah.
And the guys and girls you're talking about that are on your team, who is your team as the underwater unit?
So as an underwater unit, I start with, we have the camera, so I'm underwater operator. I have an underwater assistant who's going to prep at the rental house here, prep this camera, make sure all the bits and pieces work, because it cannot just show up. There's always adjustments to be made. And then it's a woman that works with me right now. Then she brings the housing to the tank, and that's where I'll see it first. I have I work with a woman who does safety, so these are people who are going to have prep. She starts doing training with talent, so she'll work with talent. We'll know what's going to happen. I'll let her know where I'm going to have to be, how deep they'll be.
And when you're saying talent, you mean actors?
Actors, yeah. Actors and stunt performers, and then she'll go off and she'll do certain trainings with them. Sometimes we'll get a rehearsal with them, and ideally I have this camera with me to do that. I have a key grip that I work with, and that's another person who comes in on prep to make sure if we have a build that he'll set up the build and plan it and order the bits and pieces, and then usually another grip, a lighting tech, and then a special effects person, and someone else, people to help with safety underwater who are scuba divers, some extras.
So a very big team.
Usually our biggest team will be 8. So we did a series a few years ago called Siren. And then we also have a person on deck. I think you know Aiden. It's usually Aiden Zanini. Yeah. Often it's Aiden, but it might be another crew member who's a dive supervisor. And they're sort of overseeing the dive operations, making sure we have tanks, making sure we're all hydrated, making sure that the other crew is safe and that nothing's happening crazy with electricity, things like
it's important.
Things like that, just sort of overseeing.
And is this the majority of the time at a tank, or is there any situation you'd be out on the ocean?
90% of the time we're in a tank situation. Sometimes that's at a swimming pool that's been blacked out. Most of the time now, in recent years, we've built tanks. That's another person that we work with. There's 2 fellows who build tanks, John Stevenson and Brent Meadows. Brent's been doing it for years, and John's come into it too, and they'll build tanks to spec. For the project and the space that the tank is in.
So they're temporary builds?
They're temporary builds, and they build, for the most part, they're aluminum. They look like a water tower. They're diameter. The most common diameter we'll see is for a bigger show will be a 48-foot diameter, 16 feet high tank.
Okay. So people aren't often at like scuba diving depth. It's usually just a couple feet below the surface, is what I'm hearing.
16 feet deep.
Okay, so they would go down as far as...
we're all scuba. We're all on.
Oh, okay.
The talent often is sometimes on scuba and sometimes not, and we work that out with the safety team.
How do you work that out?
So what we'll do is we'll see what they're doing. So it's with scuba diving, we have as I was talking to you earlier about the occupational dive requirement for all divers in the water. There is it's a variance on that guideline through the governing body that does safety on all work in the province. And they've said that for actors, they can be underwater on scuba no deeper than 7 feet if they're not a PADI certified diver, and no deeper than 15 feet if they are a PADI certified diver. But they're, pardon?
Well performing.
Well performing, correct. And that's actually in the guideline. You've read it?
No, it's
or
just
you think it's
just
in the guideline, well performing.
It's a standard. Like there's some
Yeah.
things like the driving, actors aren't allowed to perform and drive. Things
Right.
like that.
Yes, so
I
well
figured it's a
performing,
standard.
and they can, and usually by the time they're performing, the scubas come out. But they're always under the safety of an occupational safety diver who's watching them. Sometimes we'll train an actor or try them on scuba, and we'll be like, nope, they don't like scuba. We'll just do breath hold, and then I know that, and I know that we'll bring in scaffolding. We'll be just under the level of the water. I let the DP know if we go on a longer lens and have so we don't see the surface, and we have a field of view that helps us to get away from the surface. Field of view is just how much the lens sees. So the wider the lens, the more it sees, and if you go in a tighter lens, it's more you can understand it better if you actually worked cameras, like you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm really appreciating your definitions because like we were talking about before, I really want this video and this interview to be accessible for everyone. So I really appreciate you kind of simplifying and defining as you go. It helps us all keep up.
So because a lot of stuff when you sit in a meeting with a lot of people who some may have a bit of a water experience and some don't, and with Zoom meetings now, but when this is a production meeting, which is where you sit in a room with all the people who are going to have to be part of that underwater shoot and bring pieces to it, and you explain to them, you'll say, oh, we'll have scaffolding in the water. And they'll go, oh, aren't we going to see it? Like, we can't have scaffolding. And you explain how it works.
This is the field of view. This is the scaffolding.
This is, and all these things can be mitigated. So if I know that an actor isn't not going to be on scuba or is only going to be a couple feet under the water because they're really not a water person, we bring them to as much level of comfort as possible. Then I'll be like, okay, we can do close-ups with them, but we're not going to be able to do the wides necessarily. Maybe we have a really good, so now we're going to get a really good double that matches really well. And but won't we see, and they'll just go just under the surface and we'll get the close-up. Well, won't we see the surface? No, you'll explain how you get away from the surface. So you want to not calm everybody down because they're not all necessarily excited. Sometimes it gets exciting.
It's very exciting.
But you can mitigate a lot of tension or apprehension just explaining things.
Yeah,
so you want to make sure you're in those meetings. That's one of the things I say. If you have a meeting about underwater, have me at it. I'm going to charge you for it anyways, because a lot of times they don't want to. I just say, I'm going to be charging you. So, and I just make sure I have a prep day or two if it's going to be complicated. Usually it's one, but that gets me in those meetings. And with Zoom now, it's really easy.
Yeah. So I'm really hearing, so even if it's only one day on set where the actor is in the water and the underwater operating is happening, you have many days leading up to it that are important for the safety, for the shot lineup, for the lighting, and to bring your team together.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what else? So many different logistics, so many different things to do. What do you love about it?
I love managing those logistics, but in the end, I really love the people. I really love the people, yeah.
So tell me more. You said you have a team that you work with regularly. There's a lot of women.
There's usually, we have a pretty good mix. Like one day I was, with all the talk of diversity lately, I was thinking, my team's pretty good. We've got some older, we've got old covered for sure. Starting with me, we got black covered. Oh, there's, you know what I mean? And we have women, and we still have men and stuff like that, but it's just kind of fallen that way. It just worked out that way. So we do have sort of a regular group of people. It was really good when we had the series because we were working. We had this series called Siren where we had a tank day every episode. And when I say tank day, I mean so when you're shooting a TV series, let's say it shoots 8-day episodes. And for example, this one was 9-day episodes. So when a schedule comes up for episode 1, a schedule comes out based on 9 days of shooting. And episode 2 will be the same. Every episode's the same length.
But
Siren,
every 2 weeks, you were in the tank.
Siren had the 9th day was actually called Tank Day.
Oh, wow.
Not second unit day, and we'll go do our water on that day. a dedicated tank day. So leading up to that, I would have a production meeting day, a prep day, all kinds of emails, all kinds of errands that happen on other, stuff. Then we would have a rehearsal day where we have the stunts and we get in the water with the camera and rehearse what we were going to do, because it was quite complicated. It's all kinds of mermaids, and there's usually 3 or 4 of them, and they wanted to do a lot of stuff. This was season 3 where we had this once a week, and it came out of, in the first 2 seasons, their fan base said they wanted to see more water scenes.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was really exciting for us, because that's just not really heard of, right?
Yeah.
So we were able to continually work and hone our skills, really,
Yeah, that's amazing.
So that would be how it worked. Yeah, prep, rehearse, and then shoot, and then repeat. Was nice.
Rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this, working in the industry, working in the underwater part of the film industry for about 2 decades now.
Yeah.
Give or take a bit. How have you seen the industry change in terms of the amount of underwater work?
I think what's happening here is when I first started, there was a lot of bigger shows that had underwater, but they would bring up people from the States often. So the operators here had to compete with Americans.
Yeah, the Hollywood North Coast.
Yeah. As myself and another colleague, Ian Seabrook, came up, we came up at the same time. We're like similar age, actually the exact same age. And we came up at the same time. I was working with Water Visions. He was kind of working with a fellow named Rick Mason. And by the time we started doing our own shooting, it got to a point where we kind of just covered everything, and Americans stopped coming up. So that changed. One of those Americans is the Pete Romano, who makes these Hydroflex housings, who is my mentor. And so that was a change. I think there is quite a bit. I think there might be a little bit more. It feels like in the last 6 years there's been more underwater. There's still lots of opportunity. Like if somebody learns the housings work way more than I do, because they'll go out. They might put them on a crane. We did a really fun show called Ultra Carbon, which was that was another really nice experience. It was season 1, and when it came out, I saw it. Did this really cool show of Joel Kinnaman, who's I just like watching him as an actor, because I like seeing what he's going to do. He's just an interesting actor, I find. And it was a wide-angle shot on him just floating in the water. That was the first shot we did of the day, a 10mm lens, and
looking up.
It was really cool down at the bottom and all this stuff. And then when the show came out, it was the first shot. First shot was this thing that was kind of fun to watch. But that aside, I think they had underwater in about 4 episodes it was. And it was the first, before they even started shooting, they had access. The Siren tank had just finished being used. So we just finished Siren. We're in the Siren tank, and this show comes up kind of doing a recce or a tech scout coming to look at it. And somebody's like, oh, that's Ultra Carbon. You should try and get on that show. And I'm like, oh, how can I get on that show? And they're going to use this tank. Anyways, I did get a call and went out. But there was 2 sets of DP, director, and AD, because they shot all 4 episodes work in the one day. So we did shots for 1 episode and another episode. And then that was 1 set, AD, director, DP. And then the second set was in the afternoon, and both sets we did I thought really nice work. It was really fun, and they were just 2 lovely sets of people right through
happening simultaneously.
And it was happening 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. And we finished it. We did a lot of work. We finished an early day. I remember that, and I remember being in the parking lot and at the end of the day and saying, that was a really nice day. And it was the people. I remember the AD, one of them, he was Marlin or something, and he was from the States, Mervyn. And he was a big kind of Hollywood States first AD, and you think, going to be Hollywood and whatnot. And I remember at one point somebody had to get out of the water to do something, and he said, everybody, we're going to stop for a second, and maybe it was a bathroom break or something. And it was like, I was like, wow, this guy is giving us a bathroom break. That never happens. And And when we had to move the lights around up above, he would say, everybody out of the water, take a break, and we'll move the lights around. Where it was
conscious of
and
people.
there was a nice calm, it was cool because it was a nice calm pace that was coming from at that level, but yet we still got lots of work done in a really nice amount of time. It was really a kind of a sweet experience, and then to see that shot opening.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I was filming one of my really good friends, Lisa Chandler, was a character in the movie, and she falls into the water dead, and I got to work with her too, because she's also, when I say we've been working with the stunt community to get them more interested in water and more trained for water. She's my go-to underwater person, and so then she was just by fluke in this thing. That was neat. That was a neat experience. Yeah.
Working with good people makes such a great difference. Such
Yes.
a good difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were talking a little bit about how the industry has changed, and you said there's some really big safety changes and the way that people have worked, like you're talking about with the stunts. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like how has working underwater with cameras changed?
Let's see. I think for me, how it's changed is that I just, as I've come along, I've just decided the way that I like the workflow to be, and I've been able to maneuver into that and have had the support of the people around me to do that. And it just has made it smoother, just for the way I work. It's smoother for me. And the communication with, I have a bit of a stunt background as well. So I have a good communication with the stunt community, and I know the players, and I know how to talk to them, and I can call them. I have probably their numbers in my dial thing. So if they're doing a gig, I can call them up and say, these are the things I'm worried about. And we can start talking right there from a position of knowing each other.
That's great.
In terms of actually working physically with a camera, I've changed the way I do it. Like I used to have it's more in what's on my body when I'm doing it. So I used to wear a backpack. I remember looking at pictures of me in the water on Altered Carbon, and I have a backpack on with my scuba tank on my back, the BCD, which is that buoyancy thing that keeps you floating. I now just use a long hose, and I just swim myself around in the water. So there's a picture of me in Altered Carbon, and there's going to be a woman sinking down, and I have this picture of me at the surface waiting with my backpack on. No, we're shooting a boat thing. We're shooting this boat, so it's all at the surface, and I got my backpack on. Whereas now I would just, it's a lot more work for me, but I would just hover myself.
Wow.
I'd wear a lighter weight belt, depending on what I have to do. So now I do everything without a backpack. I weigh myself differently depending on what I have to do.
Where you have to be in the water.
Where I have to be in the water.
Wow.
And that's been a big change for me. And it makes me far more maneuverable, and I can do more.
And is the camera itself neutrally buoyant? Like, are you?
Yes, this thing, when it's fully built, it'll weigh about 72 pounds out of the water. So Kim, who you know, Kim has, I think I lose weight doing it, but it's good. I like it. And so I'm more fluid in the water now than I used to be. So that's changed. In terms of other things, we have new materials because most scenes. So say we're working in a swimming pool. It's a better example for people who aren't familiar with what the sets look like. And we've got a blue pool, but we're going to do a scene out in the ocean in the blue pool. So we have to black the walls out.
And when you say a scene in the ocean, you're saying story-wise, it takes place in the ocean.
Yeah.
But physically, you're in the pool.
Correct.
And it's blue.
Correct, yeah.
Just keeping up.
A good example is, I don't think we were talking about it before we started our interview, but or maybe we did. No, the one I was talking about, the Neptune returns to the water.
Yes.
He jumps into a
Rips his clothes
river,
off, jumps in.
but when we get into it, we're in a pool. In that case, we just used the light contrast to get the walls black, but that's not what you normally do.
Adding
we black those walls. Back in the day, we used kind of thick garbage bag material. It was very shiny, it was crinkly, it would reflect any light that hit it, and it was, so if you could get far enough back from it and there was some particulate in the water, you could kind of lose it and it's just a dark, murky background, but it was awful to work with. And we used it a lot at the Vancouver Aquatic Center, and they've got jets that come out, and so it's flapping up. I mean, it was, I don't even, now we would not have the patience because we've come so far. So then we switched to started using Duvetine. but duvetine deteriorate. Duvetine, which is just like this.
Yeah,
flag
actually, we can
here.
pull a little bit of it into the edge.
Yeah.
It's like a nicer version
So
of
it's
duvetine.
kind of a velvety
Sewed.
cloth or
Yeah.
soft cloth.
This is the edge of a flop.
Yeah, but it deteriorates quickly. It deteriorates in the chlorine. So for Siren, for example, where we're doing you're keeping it in the water for several days, even a few days with that stuff. There's a company called Best Films, and I don't know if you know about them. Mike Branham's company's Best Film, and he developed material, or he came up. I don't know if where it came from, but he introduced to us, and he says he thinks we're the first ones that used it on Siren. This material called cinematics. They use it above water now as well, but it doesn't deteriorate in the chlorine like the other materials, and it doesn't lose its darkness.
That's
so
amazing.
when we were on Siren, we had that material in the tank for 4 months. So I tried to, so that was, somebody asked me once, what's been a technical change? And I'm like, well, other than digital, I don't know. And then I was like, oh, I should have talked about Mike's fabrics. Another thing we have, and this is out of Vancouver, and then another thing that I have work with that I really like are these underwater LEDs, and they're just very simple because you don't have to put a light in a case or anything. I mean, Hydroflex has everything you can need, and they have some LEDs, but you have to, for sky panels, which are color changeable, and so, but you got to put them in a housing.
Right now.
Oh, okay.
There's 2 sky panels hitting our faces right now as we speak.
But this fellow, Thorin Tobiasen, has a company called Better Way Lighting, and he's got these underwater, they just go in the water. They're really easy to use. They're bicolor, so you'd have to gel them at this point. He's working on a multicolor version, but we use those all the time. He's got 21 inch by 21 inch, and he's got 6 foot by 2 inch long.
They're waterproof unto themselves.
And they're waterproof unto themselves.
Wow.
And that's been a huge help because it just makes it simple. So we still use, we'll often be underwater. We'll also have some of the Hydroflex lighting. They've got a bunch of PARs and stuff that Whites carries. This is where we get them from. But I like working with those LEDs. They're quick and they're easy for just, we don't want to know, usually for the most part, when we're underwater, we don't want to know where that fill's coming from because it's not really an underwater existent light. So unless it's specifically like we've got a tugboat that's just gone under the water and its tugboat light is pointing at the set, then we've got a PAR in there. So last year I went to Malta for a shoot, and we were trying to source lights. I knew I wanted some PARs. Hydroflex has some stuff overseas, so I worked closely with them, and they really helped me to get a package out of. I think the camera package came out of Rome, and the lights came out of Rome as well. But they didn't know what they were going to be like. Anyway, so we had some of that, but I wanted some ambient as well because that's what I wanted to really fill this tugboat underwater with. And we were having troubles finding that type of light. And so finally I just said, you know what, we're bringing them from Canada. And I said, Thorin, can we bring some lights? And he was very generous. They were very reasonable rate, and they showed up, they work, they did that, and they were all we ended up using in the end. And so that's been really, really nice to have. Yeah.
And I think you can't really overstate the value of something that's like reliable, shows up, easy to work with. Like that's phenomenal.
And that's the other thing about those black fabrics. So that plastic that we used to use was really cumbersome to work with. This cinematics just dropped. So we did a couple commercials last year in a pool out in Surrey, and we showed up at the tank we only had the pool from starting at 10 o'clock. So this one commercial, PM. So this one commercial we did, it was pretty funny. We started at the BCI, we started off in North Van, in a pool in North Van. Pack up the van, drive out to the pool in Surrey, and we were told that you can have access to the part of the pool you need to black out as soon as the doors open at 10. And so we brought all our stuff in. We're shooting some other stuff down at the other end of this big pool. And they've got a drone in there. It's got a really high ceiling. It's called Granville Heights Leisure Center. And then, and they start blacking out the stuff. I had to shoot something half in, half out. I had Roberta helping me down in the shallow end. And it's funny when I get Roberta to help me because she's a safety diver, and I'm like, help me hold the camera up. And she's like, oh, do I touch it here? It's quite funny. But they're blacking out down at the back, and then I hear on the radio, we're seeing the blacked out area in the pool. We're seeing that because they had the drone and they were doing this big. And so they had to take it all out.
Oh no.
Take it all out, take it out of the building.
Oh my God.
And then they shot the drone shot, and then they could come back in. So
my God. And you had a limited amount of time.
Yeah, and this was like, so the two grips and the lighting person, the dive supervisor, I think Aiden was there. Anyways, and then I couldn't help them either because I'm still shooting over here. And Roberta and I couldn't even help them. But they brought that stuff back in. It's now probably like 11 or 12. They brought it back in, set it all back up. We shot a girl thinking in the water, wrapped tail lights at 5. We were driving away. So I was, so, and that's because of the cinematics. If we hadn't had cinematics, we couldn't have done that.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And why 2 different pools though?
It was the nature of the beast. So they were shooting some surface stuff at the other pool. It was a BCIT campus, and they had a scene going on in that. It was a pool as a pool.
They needed the visuals, and then they needed
It was
the
a pool
practicality.
as a pool, yeah. If you ever shoot underwater, do not do it at that pool.
How come?
The paint comes off the wall and it murks really fast. I went
The
there on the
BCIT
scout, and I always check, and I think they've used a different paint, and then no, we get there, and I'm like just crossing my fingers that we have enough viz to get through this shot. But that's something we can talk about after.
I could ask you questions for days on end.
Yeah,
Easily.
yeah.
I love
Yeah.
chatting with you. But tell me about this beast. What are we looking at here?
So this is the housing that I like to work with the most, and this is so all the bigger sort of, I call it Hollywood North, but bigger budget productions that I work on. This is what I like to use, and it's called the Hydroflex. It's called a Mark V housing. The reason I like it is because whatever camera body they throw at you, so we have these cameras. This is called an Alexa Mini, but Sony makes cameras.
Red makes cameras.
Red makes cameras.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a lot of different
those. Who
builds.
else is there?
Panavision.
Panavision. Yes, thank you.
There's many different.
So there's
brands.
many different cameras, but the company that makes this Hydroflex has these blocks, and they can adjust this, because I call it a bullet. It's just like a big bullet. This is just a big empty case, which we can show. It's just empty, and then this tray just needs a couple adapters on it to adapt each camera to make sure that the lens is now nodal and sitting in the middle of the plane. Once that it fits, but also once we put this dome port on, which we should go over after.
Yeah, I'd love to.
The camera needs to look right down the nodal point of that dome.
So the lens has to be dead center.
Yeah.
Which is
in a
why you need the
specific-
different pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's just a small block. It's just a little chunk of metal. And then there's some other different cables and things that happen. It's never as easy as just that.
We've powered it with a gold mount. We've got our power, our SDI cable going to here, and we've got a monitor on top.
Yeah, and this is the Alexa Mini, which is, we commonly see this camera in here. This big airspace, this is interesting because the reason it weighs 75 pounds, if we just had the things that we need to actually see an image and shoot something, it doesn't have to be 75 pounds. But because this big thing is so big, when it goes in the water, it displaces a certain amount of water, and water is actually quite heavy. I forget what it is per pound. What is it, 6 something per cubic foot? It's like 6 pounds or something. I can't remember what it is, but it's quite heavy. So whatever water is displaced is pushing up. That whatever this displaces, that amount of weight that water that this is now replaced is being pushed up. So we add weight. So with this camera, we add 10 pounds.
Oh wow!
Inside
and that's on
the
top
housing, on top of everything, to actually, so we can sink it, and then we still add more weight out here. So there's holes up here. Those are for, like, we had the handles up
The
there.
soft weights.
This is actually for putting these big heavy metal weights that are in here. So I may add another anywhere from 2 to 6 pounds on the
And
outside
are those
as well.
like small adjustments you'd make in between takes?
That adjustment I'll do top a day or each lens change because we also have extensions. I think you saw in the box. So that this lens is quite small, but if we have a longer lens and it comes out to here, we put an extension in, but that also adds more air. So then we'll add weight when we go. So often when we go to a bigger lens, Kim will give me, okay, we're going to have to keep note that we're going to have to add some weight. So
Kim being your first AC,
Yeah,
your
yeah.
crucial assistant.
Yeah.
who we were missing today.
She also
building
has,
this.
I didn't mention, she has another person helping her because it's a lot of heavy gear. So we used to work with just the one person, but we found it's a much quicker, smoother, safer system if there's an extra person.
That makes
helping.
complete sense. So this is going to go, so there's a couple of things we want to talk about, but first let's talk about it going in, and then we can maybe talk about the glass in the front and then the cabling.
Sure, yeah.
So this goes in here? Is this what we're doing?
Yeah. So if I take this, ooh, how do
I tilted it off the thing a little bit.
I'll take this.
This was a little riser.
And then, you see, this on its own like this is heavy. So when Kim
left with
takes
a
it,
lot of
she's got
weight.
another 10 to 15 pounds on it. Because she's also got a bunch of other stuff, right? And
Yeah, so the camera build we have today, if I'm not mistaken, we have the Alexa Mini, then we have nothing on it, so we don't have any follow focus, we don't have any transmitters, we just have the camera body itself and a lens.
Correct, yeah.
A S4i, for those of you who are curious.
So we would have a lot more Cook lens. We would have a lot more, accoutrements.
A lot more pieces, accoutrements.
Yeah.
And those...
So what... The important thing,
No, go ahead.
The important thing when we're closing, the way that a camera, so basically you're taking a camera when you're working underwater housings work, you take a camera that is not waterproof and you put it into a waterproof container.
A bullet.
But you have to, and in this case it looks like a bullet. Most housings are specific to the camera, which means you don't have all the air and you can get rid of a lot of the weight. So the Gates housing, for instance, they make them camera specific, so their housing would be much smaller, which means you're not displacing the same amount of water, but you've got the same amount of weight because you've got the Alexa Mini in there, so you don't need, it's much lighter. So there are applications where that's better. For instance, we did and this is also cabled to the surface. For all the controls are cabled to the surface.
Someone like this, and then a lot of cables for the handset, right? For the follow focus?
Yeah. But with the Gates, you don't have to be cabled. So we did a show where we had to go into the surf in Tofino. So we got a Gates housing for that shoot so that we could be free of the tether. But that meant I had to try to pull focus myself, and we were in the surf, and I was just like hoping it was working.
Did it turn out beautiful?
It did. It worked. The sequence looked really good. So what we have is this thing which is called an O-ring, and I guess.
I'm not sure if there's any that are out.
It's a rubber ring that goes between the two surfaces here, and that makes it watertight. So when we're closing it up, we're being very careful that that ring's not pinched or anything like that. I don't know if this will actually close. I think that battery might be too big.
I have a really big battery.
But that's
on,
what
so
we
don't
do.
Have small ones.
Yeah. So what would happen is she closes it up, brings it to the edge of the tank, we receive it, hands it, latches everything. We double check, I look underneath, I'm looking from below. She hands it in, we put it in the water, and we look and listen quietly for a few seconds. And there's an alarm in there, a moisture alarm, and if any water gets on that alarm, it buzzes.
And would you hear the bubbles as well? Like if there's
no,
ever been
no, not necessarily, unless it's a giant bubble. So if you've got a giant egress, so for instance, if your O-ring pinches, this is what I'm always looking for at the bottom here. If that O-ring is pinched, when it goes in, it might not release air yet, but as soon as you tilt it up. So like if you, I had a friend who, there was a thing, Roberta, who's always very cautious with the housing. One time I had her hold it just at the edge of the tank for me for a few minutes, and she just holds it like this. Some of the folks, they'd get it and they'd be like pretending like they're shooting and doing this stuff, which is fine. I don't mind, it's fun, right? But she just goes like this. She gave it back to me, and as soon as I moved it a bit, I noticed a bubble, and I was like, I knew what was going on, and so we were way down low, and there was a grip up there, and I kept going, Brian! And he didn't hear me, but what you do is you tilt it nose down. That's what I do. I learned that from Pauline. Tilt it nose down.
And that's so that all the air stays in it.
No, it's so that if the water that's in there will hit the lens. Usually you've got this, so you've got a bit of a dish. So it's saved it. Sometimes we open it, dry it out, get all the water out, everything's cool, not even the lens is damaged. So in that case, got it nose down, it was a flat port we had on. The lens got a little bit, but we were able to dry it out and carry on.
Wow.
So anyways, that's our biggest thing is worrying about water getting in.
I could see that, yeah.
This housing has, it has a lot of like all these nuts and bolts. All of it has potential for water to come in. This cable, so you are kind of always
checking.
Yeah, you have to be very meticulous.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I see here we have on the front a flat piece of glass right now.
Correct.
That's
Yeah.
not typical from what I understand. Can you talk about the differences between what you want in front of your lens?
It can be typical. So what we have, this one here, the dome port and a flat port, we call them. The dome port is when you go in the water with a lens, there's distortion, refraction and reflection. Anyway, there's distortion. It's basically your image is a quarter closer and a third larger due to magnification. When I say quarter closer, it means that if something is physically a foot away from your film plane, you're going to set your lens at 9 inches.
So we 9 inches being 3/4 of 12, because it's 1/4 closer. Yeah, 9 inches of 12 inches.
Yeah, so quarter closer, 3 inches. You take 3 inches off. Yeah. Okay. So that's why I call it quarter closer. Third larger is it magnifies to feel a third larger, and it's not because it's that quarter closer. It's just the way of the water. It's,
So like if we were this far apart underwater, it would feel like I was right here. It's kind of what I'm hearing.
No.
No?
It wouldn't feel like you're right there. No? It's the way the lens would read it, like that with the flat port.
Sorry,
it's the flat
to
port.
the camera it would feel like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it wouldn't feel like that. But we used to have special tape measures. So when I came up, I was very fortunate to come up in the film world, and as an assistant, it was a lot more work. But I was in the water. So on top of it, I was also in the water. Sometimes you'd have somebody who could load your mags for you, but sometimes you were in the water pulling focus. Then when you had to reload, you'd have to get out of the water, dry yourself off, open up the housing, take the mag off, put the new mag on, pack the other mag in the box. Hopefully you had a second who was going to come and take the mags and bring you new ones. Anyways, but you were in the water with the camera and you were pulling focus. And so we had tape measures and we marked them a foot, every foot another 9 inches, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we had different markings on there. So the way you can really feel that third larger is if you do half in, half out shot, and if I was to look at you with a flat port, your shoulders would be huge and your face would be little.
Well, that's just all my working
That's
out.
just it.
That happens.
So that's where you would see you'd get the feeling for what the third larger means. If you go fully under the water now, you will look.
Perception-wise, it feels right.
Yeah, but the lens is essentially what it is a magnification of the lens. So if we we'll usually start on the dome port on our wider lenses. Focus is different. Your focus marks are in the inches range because you're focusing off of a latent image off of this dome port. Complicated to go into the details of that, but you end up in the inch. Yeah, you end up focusing between like 15 and 18 inches, say, depending on. It still depends on where your subject is, but you're pulling focus in this range. And on Pauline's housing, she used to have charts. It was great. So we knew where, and I could see the physical lens through her because it was a plexi housing, and that's how I learned. And so if you didn't have a close focus lens, then you'd have to put a diopter on the lens. So we, not so much anymore, but we used to use a 15 to 40 Optimo T2. So a zoom lens, short zoom, because a lot of shows, especially TV shows, would like to use a zoom because it could, you put it in and it's in the water, it's done. Not as much anymore. I notice we use a lot more primes now, which I like better. But, and it was not T2, but it was a 2-foot close focus. And that's outside of the range that would focus. So we'd always have a diopter on, but then your problem with that is if you're shooting stuff really far back, one diopter works, but now if you're getting into the closer stuff, you got to change the diopter. So we love to rather be able to do it on the close focus of the lens.
That makes sense, because changing the diopter, and do you mind just defining a diopter?
Oh yeah, a diopter is a piece of glass that you put in front of the lens to bring it into a closer focus. So if your lens focuses to 2 feet, it means that if you're 2 feet away, your lens can focus on something. But if I come into here, it will no longer focus, but I can put this piece of glass in front of it that will bring that capability. But if I pan up, I can't get back out to far away. So it works and it doesn't work. The old movies used to do a trick. If they had a person really far forward and a person really far back, they put these split diopters. You know that, remember that? Yeah. And so they could have, when you see shots, looks kind of off because our eye doesn't do that. So they look kind of off, but you might not know why. And
yeah, you can always see just a little bit of the line,
you might see a little
right,
bit
the split. But every clever cinematographer, you will almost never be able to see it. Just hidden in a pole or something.
We don't really do that now, but that was like Hitchcock, I'm thinking.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for the definition. Those
yeah.
are
So
definitions.
so that would be with the dome port, and it's very forgiving at the further distances, the depth of field, because it works a little bit differently. So I like to say it's very forgiving up to about 35 mil lens in a standard spherical 185 format, like so large format aside, that's different.
Yeah, we'll focus just on our standards for now. So if you're shooting on a wide lens, typically you would want to use a dome port.
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
And then that way my 18 mil is an 18 mil. With the flat port, my 18 mil behaves more like a 24, or looks
because
like
of
a 24
one
because
quarter
of
closer.
the third larger.
Third larger.
Yeah.
The
quarter closer is
really
just where you're
for
going to set your focus. Yeah. I kind of, it's easier to explain the third larger. So once I get to a 50, focus gets a little bit critical on the dome, so I'll move to a flat port. And now you've got the full range of your lens. You might end up on a diopter because you want somebody closer than maybe your 50 mil. You know, as the lens gets longer, they tend to have their close focus, and that's their special lens is usually further out. So you might get on a diopter, but I'm thinking of a situation where we had a diopter on and the lens just got touched with water, and then the filter, because we had to have the diopter, it was kept fogging, and the DP's like, just put it in the water, and I'm like, nope, just keep drying it, because it's gonna fog, and and he's like, put it in the water, and I'm like, no, keep drying it, Kim, keep drying it, and we got it to where it would work, but if we just put it in the water, it would have been like, bring it back out, because it's not, and we would have lost time. Sometimes you have to go, yeah. So anyways, so then we'll go to that's the difference between the dome and the flat. Most of our work is done on the dome. It's a nicer look, it's a nicer feel. Your lenses are your lenses. So, and in underwater you tend to be on wider lenses, because when you get on the longer lenses now, what you do is you add more particulate. The further you are from your subject, the more particulate in the water there is, no matter how crystal clear it is. But if the water's nice and clear, yeah, you can go a certain distance, but if the water's not, so you tend to work tighter angle, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, when I went to Malta, Pete, I called this guy who has this, I called him up because I knew he had worked there. And he told me the tanks there are filled with ocean water. And when they're not filled with ocean water, it's a flat island, it's very dusty, and it's a big, giant tank, 30 feet deep, 100 feet across, let's say, cones down to 30 feet, but it's filling with dust. So you put the ocean water in, the ocean water has stuff in it, you've already got this kind of dirty bottom that doesn't have a filter because it's so big, and that's just how they've left it. And so you leave it for a couple days, you let the particulate settle, and then you try to stay off the bottom to shoot. But they had a set piece down there, and so they had to be on the bottom, and they had so much stuff in there, and he said it got so murky that they had to shoot everything on 12 mil lens up close just to see what they were filming on it. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. It was a definite consideration, yeah. So we were very nervous about going there, and like, what's the viz going to be like? But
I heard it turned out beautifully.
Yeah, it turned out fine. Yeah, yeah.
Fine or beautifully?
Fine, beautifully.
Fine.
It was, yeah. The first day we filled the tank, and unfortunately we had to have a break day between. it was really nice. So I remember I pulled the set deck, the guy who had built the boat, the art decorator and the production designer, and the producer who really wanted to see this boat built in the water. I said, you guys have to come today and look at this on the real camera, because we had the monitor sent up with the Hydroflex down there, and because it looks so beautiful, and we don't know what's going to happen in a couple days, and it wasn't quite as clear. Yeah.
Interesting.
We just had this, so I just wanted them to see it, but yeah.
Well, Braden, I could honestly ask you questions for weeks on end, but we have gone through most of what there is to talk about. Well, some of what there is to talk about, and I'm conscious of Boyd's time. We are now past their closing time.
Is it? Oh.
Yes. But is there anything else you want to touch on that you feel like people should know about underwater operating?
No, I think that's about it. It's just I feel very fortunate that I had. It's what I wanted to do, and I was able to do it. But I made it my focus, and I just put the time into it and waited for it to come. So now I'd like to get some bigger jobs that are like the Malta job, and a lot more coordinating and stuff like that.
And by bigger jobs, you mean longer jobs? Because you worked
longer
Power
jobs,
Rangers,
more complicated scenes,
Okay,
more really complicated scenes, like with a big set. I remember Pete when he was talking to me about when he got the call for the job in Malta. He was saying it was an operator's dream. It was a set. It was bank robbers. It was stuff going on, and also the actors were scuba diving, so you have them for a lot longer. You can. You can do. You didn't have to worry about their eyes or them being cold because they were suited up.
It would be so cool.
And then it was really frustrating because of the visibility. But they did it. Yeah.
Well, Braden, thank you so much. I have learned so much today, and I hope everyone else watching has. It's been so cool. This has been Dusty Tracks BC, talking all about underwater housings, operating, and DPing with Braden Haggerty. Thank you so much. Thank you all for watching.
Thanks.